This meeting is called to order. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the State Game Commission meeting here in Eastern New Mexico State University. Director Sloan, please call roll.
Commissioner Witt,
Present.
Commissioner Lopez,
Here.
Commissioner Harwood. Not on the Zoom yet. Vice Chair Clemente,
Present.
Chair Stubb,
Here.
you have a quorum.
And I am present as well.
Okay.
Welcome,
Commissioner Harwood is here.
welcome, Commissioner Carwood.
Thank you, Chair Stunt.
Let's start with introduction and guests. Let's start with Commissioner Lopez.
Good afternoon, Chair, fellow commissioners, and members of the public. As Commissioner out of District 3, it's great to be in Roosevelt County and to get our work done today.
Good morning, and thank you everybody for being here. My name is Fernando Clemente. I'm Vice Chair, Commissioner at Large from Sunland Park, New Mexico.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. I'm Richard Stump, Chair of the Commission.
Good morning. My name is Christopher Witt. I am representing District 5, Bernalillo County. Also professor at University of New Mexico. I was very pleased to be shown around the Portales area by a professor from Eastern New Mexico today, Professor Schmidt, who's in attendance, and looking forward to learning more about Portales.
Good morning, commissioners, members of the public. Mike Sloan, Director of the department.
And hello, Chair Stump, participating remotely. This is Commissioner Harwood. Thank you.
Good morning, commissioners, members of the public. Stuart Liley, Chief of Wildlife for the department.
Good morning, commissioners, everybody. I'm Ben Neary. I'm with the New Mexico Wildlife Federation.
I'm Justin Medina.
And Justin's a student here at ENMU, and my name is Jonathan Schmidt, and I'm an assistant professor here in the biology department.
David Heft, retired wildlife biologist, hunter, trapper, Mayhill.
Chris Geikema, I'm Compass West Outfitters.
Kirk Kennedy, landowner, outfitter in northeastern New Mexico.
Thomas Austin, resident guide, Rito, New Mexico.
Mason Grau, landowner and member of New Mexico Cattle Growers Association.
Good morning, commissioners, members of the public. I'm Jeremy Martin. I'm the department's general counsel.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Colin Duff. I'm our major over the field operations division.
Good morning, commissioners, members of the public. I'm Benjamin Bird. I'm the captain of the Southeast area out of Roswell.
Good morning, commissioners, members of the public. I'm Kirk Patton, chief of fisheries for the department.
Good morning, Commissioner Sean Carroll, the lieutenant over revocation.
Good morning, commissioners, members of the public. My name is Paul Varela. I'm the chief of administrative services for the department.
Good morning, commissioners, members of the public. I'm Darren Vaughn. I am the communications director for the department.
Good morning, commissioners and the public. I'm Kurt Kaufman. I'm the assistant chief of education for the department.
Good morning, commissioners and members of the public. Daniel Vidal, IT applications developer and webmaster for Department of Wildlife.
Good morning, commissioners, members of the public. My name is Eric Arce, and I'm the New Mexico Magazine wildlife editor.
Good morning, commissioners. My name is Matt Alcoof. I'm an IT operations manager for Department of Wildlife.
Do we have anybody online?
Mark, if you would like to say something.
Good morning, commissioners and members of the public. My name is Dr. Mark Matini. I live in Wadi Village, Laguna Pueblo. I am a member of the New Mexico Board of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. and I am a member of the Department's Citizen Advisory Committee. Thank you.
Garth, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Good morning, commissioners, everybody. This is Garth Reeder from Los Alamos, New Mexico.
Jesse, if you would like to introduce yourself. Asher, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Asher. I'm from Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I'm with Western Landowners Alliance.
I think that's everyone, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Again, welcome and thanks everybody for participating here today. Let's move on to agenda item number 4, approval of the agenda. Commissioners, any discussion on the agenda? Is there a motion?
So move to approve the agenda as presented.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item number 5 is approval of the minutes from the May 28th, 2026 meeting in Socorro. Commissioners, any discussion on minutes? Is there a motion to approve?
So move to approve the minutes as presented as well.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion on the motion. All those in the favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item number 6 is revocations. Commissioners, any discussion on revocations? Is there a motion?
So move to approve the revocation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item number 7 is the first of 2 opportunities to hear public comment. We asked if, do we have anybody for public comment registered?
Mr. Chair, I haven't received any
right.
cards yet, but double check on that. I don't know if there's anyone online that wants to comment.
Yeah, I'll check on that. So wait till he comes back. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, there's someone online, Garth, that would like to say something.
Sure. We do ask comment be limited to items not on the agenda today and that you speak only one of the 2 public comment periods. Go ahead, Garth.
Yes, good morning. I have a general comment regarding the public draw. There is currently a fundamental lack of understanding of how the public draw works in this state, and it's causing consternation and friction amongst many resident hunters. I would urge the commission to task the department to develop in-depth educational materials regarding how the public draw works, its limitations, and its benefits. I would also encourage that the department and the commission look into changes and updates to the public draw to enable more of the resident hunters to score an opportunity to hunt in this state. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Garth. Anybody else online? No. Okay. Agenda item number 8 is a subsequent discussion of proposed changes to the Deer Rule 19.31.13 NMAC presented by Chief Liley. As a reminder, this is the final presentation before a hearing, so it is important for both the public and commissioners to provide comment before the final draft rule is developed. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, members of the commission. As you discussed before the start of this is our subsequent discussion of the deer rule. After this meeting today, we'll go to draft the rule for the hearing potential at August meeting. So kind of last time to kind of go through some of the proposed changes with you all on the deer rule. So real briefly, just kind of going through some of the population status and some of the other information. So statewide, our population estimate's about 80 to 100,000 deer. Deer population growth is really driven by adult female survival, which tends to be more consistent across both temporal and spatial, so more consistent across space and time. Whereas fawn survival is definitely has higher variability on an annual basis and over time and space as well. And really fawn survival could also help drive population dynamics if you have really poor survival. And where we see that is more in long-term drought periods or where you have drought impacting higher predation rates, et cetera. Buck harvest, for the most part, is not going to limit population growth, overall trajectories of population size. The only time we see buck populations or buck harvest limiting population growth is when we get to ratios below 10 bucks per 100 does. We don't see that anywhere within any of our populations in the state, but that's when you can see potential impacts on reproductive success of deer populations. You'll see there are 5-year average, again, that's statewide average buck to doe ratios and fawn to doe ratios. What we would like to see for a stable population is greater than 35 fawns per 100 does. We're pretty stable in some of that. In the last few years, definitely in some areas, we've seen lower fawn to doe ratios than that. Again, probably long-term drought affecting that. Real briefly, there's 2 species of deer in New Mexico, both whitetail and mule deer. Mule deer found pretty much most areas within the state, but what you'll see here is the 2 different subspecies of whitetail within New Mexico, one being Cow's whitetail deer, distribution mainly in the southwest portion of the state. That's clipped. You could see there kind of in the Boot Hill kind of region up into the Gila, over into the San Mateos, Magdalenas a little bit as well. And then on the right graphic is eastern whitetail deer along the Pecos River mainly, along our eastern border with Texas as well, and then also a little bit into like the Cimarron River drainages, et cetera, in the foothills of the mountains just outside of Rat Town. This picture here, this graphic is kind of depicting license sales and harvest through time, going back all the way to the 50s. So you'll see historic declines both in licenses and harvest through time. Those double bars really represent the first one on the left is when the state went from over-the-counter licenses for deer into a limited entry back in about 2005-06 season. And then just after that, we implemented mandatory hunter harvest reporting in 2006-07 hunting season. So through that time period, you'll see kind of a drastic, a larger decline really in the 60s into the early 1990s, early 2000s. And that trend is pretty similar throughout the West, driven mainly by mule deer. This is predominantly mule deer declines. And more maybe in the recent history, the last 15, 20 years, more of a stabilization within populations, but some definitely variability by location of both increase and decrease in the last 20 years. Looking more in the last 20 years, you'll look at, this is our both our buck to doe and female, fawn to doe ratios across the last 20 years. Buck to doe in the blue, fawn to doe in the red. Again, fawn more variable than the buck numbers and to be expected, but you'll see fairly consistent through time. Little bit of decline, maybe a decline trend in fawn to does across that 20-year period, but a lot of variability within that nothing really significant stands out. So here it's kind of depicting what we would call kind of more management zones, but more or less what we're looking at here is where we have more distinct populations, where we say that kind of functions as a population. It's almost by kind of ecotype in there. This gets refined as we put more GPS collars on deer populations, looking at connectivity and how they move across the landscape. But you'll see there, it's more or less we look at 17 different kind of management areas or populations of mule deer populations across the state, with refinements that are continuing to happen as we go through different research projects that look at movements across. Just real brief, last year's harvest, both licenses and a success. So about 36,000 licenses sold. Again, almost all predominantly buck harvest. Very few of those licenses are for female does. 87% of our hunters are reporting, so high reporting rates, and we reported a 30% success rate last year. Harvest of about just over 9,000 bucks and just over 100 does, 137 does statewide. Satisfaction rates at 3.5. So more of just a closer look at the last 20 years of license numbers in harvest. You'll see fairly consistent license numbers and harvest through time. Harvest is tracking license numbers fairly well. That red line is our harvest. Green line is license numbers. And then that blue line is a smoothed out harvest, kind of the average harvest over a 5-year period. But you'll see fairly consistent across the last 20 years or so for the statewide. Real briefly, just want to touch on a couple of research projects that we do have for deer. One is kind of some looking at movement across the landscape, where we currently put some collars on deer in the Pecos Mountains, kind of looking at that post-fire movement in the Calf Canyon, Hermit's Peak, and in the southern end of that. And then also on Mount Taylor, trying to understand deer dynamics across that Mount Taylor. We put radio collars on deer this winter. We will be analyzing the data after the next couple of years of collection. And then last time when we spoke about this, we were getting ready to start a buck survival study in northern New Mexico, specifically kind of in 2B area, GMU 2B. We did place the first transmitters on deer in March of this year. That's trying to understand how population dynamics work across multiple jurisdictions. Those deer move across both tribal in New Mexico and Colorado, as well as Colorado land. So multiple jurisdictions, all managing kind of what we think is one or bigger herd. We were able to capture 15 bucks in March of this year. While we were out capturing, we did have a issue where a bearing went out in the tail rotor, so we had to cease capture for the rest of the year. And just given how hot it was, we ceased. Our plan is, though, next year, in cooperation with Colorado, is to put 110 transmitters on bucks in New Mexico and 110 transmitters on bucks in Colorado to kind of really get a better understanding across all these jurisdictions. But interestingly enough, the 15 deer that we did tag, all of them migrated. So you'll see this picture here. Those are the kind of the centroids. There's where they were captured on winter range. And then what you're seeing in the left is the movements from March 10th to April 30th. So moving up to summer range already. And then what you're looking at the right graph is May 1st to June 16th. Still some movements up to summer range, but some of them have already probably met their summer ranges by the end of, or excuse me, middle of June, or staying kind of put. Almost all of them, you'll see of the 15 that moved. We did have a couple mortalities, but of the ones that survived, the majority moved to Colorado. You'll see that line in the center of the graphic. That's the Colorado-New Mexico border. We did have one that kind of went over to the Rio Chama Wildlife Area and is hanging out there as well. So already getting a little bit of information out of it, but it kind of to our thought, we've radio collared does in this population before, but this is the first time we did bucks. And I just probably should have shown on this picture, we're using satellite transmitters that are solar satellite transmitters that are ear tags. We try not to radio collar males of the population as much as possible because it just, especially on ungulates, you get neck swelling during the rut, and it's just not as great to put radio collars on. But these ear tag transmitters are showing some pretty decent promise. They've used them in other states like Wyoming, and I think that's going to work out really well for us to get at some of this movement data that we've had on females, but just have been limited on males to see if they behave differently. Within deer management across the state, we really have two different kind of strategies, if you will, kind of quality, where it's designated to basically have a wider selection of harvest from different age class of males. So it's more limited number of licenses for the most part. There might be older age class males in there, higher buck to doe ratios, lower height or lower hunter density, and then increased opportunity for success. Whereas the opportunity units are kind of more to just that, the opportunity to try to go deer hunting, maybe lower buck to doe ratios, still above our thresholds we want to have of above 10 to 100, but the chance to draw is chance to draw is higher. Success rates may or may not be lower, and in general, it's kind of more maximizing the opportunity to be able to hunt. Real quick, looking at the graph here, this is the blue represents our quality hunt GMUs. Some GMUs, we have quality hunts across all hunts in the GMU, but there might be some quality, what we consider quality hunts, specific hunts, for example, like our 2B third rifle hunt or the January bow hunt in 2B has been designated as quality just because of the migration that we see in there and the different structure of the population in there. But the rest of the GMUs highlighted in blue, solid blue, are those GMUs where we specifically designate the entire GMU as quality. So back in March, we sent out kind of a hunter attitude survey across a lot of our different species, trying to gauge just some kind of hunter response on where they feel management is, what their desires from a hunting perspective is, and try to get respondents from that. We received, it was open for 2 weeks, and we received just over 1,200 responses. You'll see the breakdown of kind of what those respondents were. Most of them were residents. The majority were over the age of 35. Most of them were public draw hunters, are self-identified as predominantly a public land hunter, and most of them were rifle hunters. So when we ask the question about how important it is to potentially hunt annually for deer for them, you'll see the majority of those responses. If you look at important and very important, most people, the priority is to try to hunt a deer every single year was their biggest gauge of their attitude on deer harvest. And their primary objective for when they go deer hunting was listed as meat. They hunt for meat. You'll see harvesting a big buck, a mature buck came in kind of second there, but the majority was the opportunity to hunt and to hunt for meat if you add those two up. Moving on to some of the different questions, we wanted to know how they were in terms of satisfaction and the last experience they had. And so you could kind of see it's a little bit divided in between very satisfied, not satisfied at all, or satisfied. It's kind of an even if you add in the neutral. So you'd look at more of a neutrality and a statement in there on whether they were satisfied with their hunt or not. It's almost a coin flip if you kind of add those columns up. And then the reasons for satisfaction versus not satisfaction, you'll see down in those bottom graphics, the graphics showing that the majority of respondents that said they were satisfied with their last hunt was just they were satisfied that they had the opportunity to go hunting, and followed by experience of just going hunting. Dissatisfaction came more from lower deer density in general, and then not enough mature bucks was the other reason for dissatisfaction. So again, as I said, some level is satisfaction and some level is dissatisfaction was virtually the same, with neutral being about 24%. So really not swayed one way or the other. But the interesting parts coming out of this, as I mentioned, why they were satisfied or not, but So a lot of hunters are satisfied, about half satisfied with management and half are dissatisfied. But if you look at it, those hunters most want to hunt on an annual basis, but also want to have a greater chance at harvesting a mature buck and more deer density. So that it's kind of an impossible situation to build in there. If you want everyone that's applying, everyone to have the chance to draw, but also the chance to get at a mature buck, just the deer densities and the potential to try to get at that is just, it's a supply and demand issue, is that there's more people wanting to get out than there is the ability to have high density, high buck to doe ratios while still having the opportunity to draw on an annual basis, right? And so kind of came to people want to hunt and they want to have an opportunity every single year, but they want to have a mature buck every year too at that opportunity. And when we go onto some of our proposals, you'll see when we try to get into more of the quality type hunt designation, it really requires reducing harvest or limiting tags and at a significant level, which then of course obviously reduces the ability to hunt on an annual basis. Real quick, just going to go through some of our general proposed changes, and then we'll go more regional specific as we go through. So adjusting, like we do at every rule cycle, trying to adjust license numbers to meet management strategies and changes in deer harvest or deer herd dynamics. And then season dates, we adjust every kind of year because of calendar creep. We also adjust to make sure that the harvest is sustainable. Sometimes these harvest dates get creeping into more of the rut, a little bit less sustainable. We were also adjusting some seasons for consistency across the state. But one of the other things is what we're trying to do is adjust seasons to avoid overlapping hunts with mixed weapon types for different species. For example, if we had a deer hunt with a rifle occurring as the same time as a elk hunt with a muzzleloader, we tried to limit that as much as possible across the state to where we had the same weapon type hunting at the same time if we had to have overlapping species hunts at the same time. And then we have the one hunt that allows for a draw hunt that if someone draws it, they could hunt anywhere in the state. That currently is not designated as quality hunt. We think that it is a quality hunt, so just designating that hunt. We evaluated, and we'll get into more details, kind of the antlerless hunts across the state as well. We did propose some reductions on doe harvest. And then two of the other kind of bigger changes we proposed and looked at was putting a ranch registration in place for private land deer hunts, similar to what we've been doing and proposing for other species such as Oryx, deer pronghorn, and then also putting caps on the private land deer licenses. And we are proposing moving forward with that. Before we get into the details of what those caps would look like, what we did was we took the 3-year average license sales for those units or specific hunts, and that was kind of the proposed to stay with that, is if we had no plans on changing the management strategy within that area. So kind of more status quo on the number of private land deer licenses sold, just taking that 3-year average license sale. Real quick before we go through, just kind of looking at some of our public comments. This is through the 23rd. So today, that was 2 days ago when this was put together. We have received a few more comments since then, but you'll see the majority of the comments were on the private land license cap. There was both support and opposition, but more support for it than opposition. And then also on that ranch registration, both support and opposition. I didn't list all the comments here. In this slide, that were pertinent to the specific proposed changes we had. You'll see the support for our 2B proposal on reducing licenses and making that a quality hunt as well. And then different comments throughout, both in support and opposition. Kind of some of our miscellaneous comments that weren't directly at a specific proposal we had. You'll see there's comments in splitting GMU 16 into subunits. That was a form kind of letter comment. It was the same comment that was multiple. We looked at the potential to do that. We felt like the number of licenses across the entire area. It was not that we would have a hunter density issue. So we really felt the number of licenses in 16 for deer, we were able to make sure that they were spread out to where we didn't need to do splits. There were some comments on trying to create doe hunts and units, and you'll see some of the other comments throughout there. So moving more into the specifics and the regional approaches in the Northwest, the biggest there is, we've discussed this in the past, and we've discussed it with Hickory too, is reducing GMU2B harvest for mature deer to make that a quality hunt. When we analyzed the data last time we went in front of you, we had not analyzed that yet, and we went through what our determination was, and the next slide will show is in order to shift that to a quality hunt would require reducing 885 licenses in that unit. So we were thinking it was going to be about 1,000, and that is pretty close to where we came in. And again, in the next graph, I'll show you the exact cuts. We tried to go at the licenses that had the highest success, reducing those so we didn't have to reduce. We were able to reduce fewer licenses than just a general broad reduction in licenses across. So the hunts that had lower success rates had lower cuts. Those that had the highest success rates had the highest cuts to those licenses. We also are proposing to create a new rifle hunt in GMU 51A, kind of to spread out the pressure across there. It won't change overall license numbers, but just different time frame to spread that pressure out. And then proposing muzzleloader hunts on the wildlife management areas in GMU 4. Currently, we don't have muzzleloader hunts for deer in there, and we're proposing creating ones on the wildlife management areas in there to coincide at the same time frame as the private land hunts there. So 2B, this is the proposed. If you'll look at this, it goes through each one of those specific hunts, shows current licenses and then proposed licenses, and then our estimated change in harvest. And so you'll see some of these licenses where it really had kind of the bigger impact was that early October, or excuse me, end of October, early November hunts, where you'll see we went 400 licenses. Currently, we're proposing moving that to 100, so a reduction at 300. That almost relates to a 100, we think 170 less in the harvest, so almost a 50% decrease on that hunt. So those other hunts, that mid-October, that hunt we didn't propose changing, just we don't see as high of harvest in there. And again, trying to target those hunts that had the highest success. So overall reductions didn't, to achieve a harvest goal of reducing almost 400 in the population harvest. That's how we came about with these licenses.
Sure.
Commissioner Lopez.
Chief Liley, on the youth hunts in November, we had those at 25, correct? And then we reduced them by 5 to 20. Could we reduce those even more? Because that's right during the rut. Maybe put that at, I don't know, another 5 of reduction?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Lopez, absolutely could. The drops in success, right? So the hunts that really had bigger impact, that's why we looked at it. That hunt of 400 actually had a higher impact on the population. And that's where we work through to say, where are we going to actually see the biggest impact on the population? And so you'll see the reduction of, if you win another 5 out of there, you might save potentially a harvest of 5 more, whereas that rifle hunt with 400 licenses, moving it to 100, you're saving 170 potentially. So that's why we went at that, trying not to limit some of those youth opportunities as well, was kind of some of the concerns in there. Just for background, that hunt of 25 during this, that was cut the previous rule cycle. It used to be 150. We moved it to 25. Now we're proposing down to 20. So that's gone from 150 down to 20 is the proposal. Moving on through the rest of the license numbers, these are the proposed licenses on the draw. You'll see that cut in 2B, some minor increases in 5B, 6A, and then another increase in 14. Those 5B is an archery, moving from 10 archery tags to 15, and the muzzleloader hunt from 10 to 15. In 6, moving archery from 100 to 110, and one rifle hunt from 110 to 115. And then in 14, it's proposing moving the archery from 25 to 40 in the first archery hunt, and then in the second archery hunt from 25 to 30, and in the muzzleloader hunt from 55 to 60. And then the proposed private land caps, as we kind of discussed at the last couple meetings on caps on private land. You'll see here, you'll notice some of the 2 and 4 hunts aren't in there because those are already in the draw for private lands in that region, so they're already capped. What, again, the way that we proposed it was taking the 3-year license sale average for those over-the-counter unlimited and capping it at what that license sale is. You'll see some of those have a little bit more than the 3-year average proposal, because that might be where we increase some of the youth only hunts in the cap, because there was maybe 1 or 2 sold, so we moved it up to 3, or some of the mobility impaired that was maybe 1 or 2 sold, we maybe moved it up to 3 or 5, or we moved some archery hunts up that were selling 2 or 3 licenses up to 5. So some of those hunts are higher than the 3-year license sales, but it's more moving those youth only, mobility impaired, or archery seasons up a little bit. In the Southwest region, we're proposing moving that, and this is in concert with White Sands Missile Range, moving the deer hunt there in January to a youth deer hunt. We're also proposing creating a December rifle hunt for cows whitetail in GMU 16 and 20 licenses each in those GMUs. And then in GMU 23 and 24, right now, if you draw that archery tag and don't harvest a deer during your archery hunt, you could go hunt the Silver City management area for does. We had public comments coming in enough that people said I would just put in for that hunt if you would make it a draw. So we're proposing just making that a draw hunt for our archery deer doe tag in that Silver City area anyway. So those that are unsuccessful in the harvest won't be able to hunt there now, but we are proposing just creating a new hunt code for people to put in for that hunt. We're also proposing moving youth rifle hunts in GMU for deer in GMU 13 and 17 to muzzleloader hunts. That will match the weapon type during the elk hunts. So there's an overlapping elk hunt without our muzzleloader in there as well. We're also moving those to muzzleloader hunts. We're proposing some slight increases to those licenses as well, because of the success rates of muzzleloader tend to be less. We're also proposing no longer making Fort Baird a special management area, and just letting anyone that draws that tag in 24 can legally access it, can hunt Fort Baird as well. It used to be just limited to youth hunts, youth area. We are seeing not much difference in densities across Fort Baird to the other areas. And then creating a public rifle hunt for the new Membris WMA in GMU 24 of 5 licenses. Real quick, just looking at the draw licenses across the Southwest, most of that increase in there is in creating new cows whitetail deer hunts. So not necessarily increasing the mule deer hunts. Where we did increase mule deer again was in 13, 17 on those youth hunts, moving those from rifle to muzzleloader hunts. And then the proposed caps on private land in the Southwest, similar to like what we did in the Northwest, but you'll see in the notes there too is also creating these new forked whitetail or cows deer hunts, creating a new draw, excuse me, a new private land code for that as well, since that would be a new hunt in there as well. So you'll see that's why those caps are a little bit higher than the 3-year average, because these would be new hunts. In the Southeast area, we're proposing removing the antlerless hunt in GMU 32 in the Roswell and Fort Sumner areas. We're proposing keeping the youth-only antlerless hunt and putting that at 15 public and 20 private licenses in the cap. It was unlimited previously. We also are proposing removing the antlerless hunt on the Huey Wildlife Management Area and changing that to the either sex hunt and the either sex hunt, excuse me, from either sex to a forked antler deer. Just the densities of deer on the Huey are not as such now that we think doe harvest is necessary. And then we're proposing significantly reducing licenses in GMU 29 and 30. You'll see 29 at reducing 120 and 30 at 525. That's coming off a lot of public hunter comment, but also success rates are starting to drop in those areas fairly precipitously. And then also seeing hunter satisfaction declining pretty high in those units. I forgot to mention 34 as well as another drop in that. So looking at licenses in the southeast and the public draw side, you'll see those cuts throughout. There's some of those smaller cuts again are those antlerless hunts that we were discussing, but the majority of that is in 29, 30, 34 on the cuts on licenses. And then you'll see the proposed caps on private land in that region as well. And then in 33, you'll see the cap is less on 32 because of removing the antlerless hunt in that unit. Northeast area, no big changes across the board. Some minor changes in license numbers you'll see there. More of that is in 45, increasing archery licenses from 165 to 170 and the muzzleloader hunt from 160 to 165. In 48, increasing the archery hunt by 5, muzzleloader hunt by 5, and the rifle hunts by 5 as well. Just population data suggests some of the ratios are much higher in there, and also kind of the densities that we've been seeing in our surveys has been higher. And then 49, some slight adjustments as well in there, a little bit higher. And then 57, moving the muzzleloader from 15 to 20. And private land caps in that region as well. You'll see, again, we took the 3-year license sales, so the average of what we've seen over the last 3 years. And then you'll see there is some higher numbers in there. Again, most of that is due to increasing either youth hunts that had a 3-year average of 1 or 2 or 3 licenses sold, moving that to 5, or a mobility impaired and moving that to 5, etc. And with that, I would take any questions.
Commissioners?
Chair,
Commissioner Lopez?
going back, could you go back to your slide, Chief Lively, regarding the numbers of the license you had in that area of the Jicaria? Right there. I know that the tribe was, or the nation, I'm sorry, was looking at a reduction of 20%. Were we able to collaborate with them to meet that 20%?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Lopez, we did have conversations with the Jicarilla Nation as we were developing this and these numbers. We did sit down with them and discuss. This is where we kind of came, it's bigger. So the 20% reduction happened in this current license year. We did do that. That was a concurrence with the chair, but this is a much bigger, as you can see, reduction than 20%. And that's what in order to, what we think will be a quality to meet our standards of definition of quality, that's where we thought license numbers would, about a 400 decrease in harvest in that unit, which relates to about a 885 license decrease in there.
Commissioner Witt?
Chief Lively, thanks for the great presentation. I just want to follow up on this because I want to understand more about what you were saying about the biology based on your satellite solar ear tags. Can you go back to the slide where you show the migratory tracks? Yes. Okay. So can you just clarify these were these all bucks? Is that what you said?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Witt, that is correct. They were all bucks captured approximately March 10th
of this year. So these are actively unfolding stories, basically.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Witt, that's correct.
Okay. So, and these are all to be or not to be? That's my question. That's my question.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Witt, these are all to be, they were all captured in GMU 2B this winter.
Okay. And so I want to understand sort of what this means more about the seasonal pattern. So these bucks are going from New Mexico to Colorado sometime sometime in April or late March. And then we expect them to go back into New Mexico in October, November or something.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Stump, we imagine our speculation is they're going to follow similar patterns to the doe segment of the population. We've radio collared the doe segment of the population historically in here. They start arriving back on winter range as early as second week of October to the really peak at the end of October, all the way back to 2B. Now they transition through multiple jurisdictions. It's hard to tell from that graphic, but if you look at green, that's more or less Forest Service. If you look at white just above the New Mexico-Colorado border, that's Southern Ute. So that's a tribal. And then if you look just to the west of where those were captured, that is the Jicarilla. And so they do transition through multiple jurisdictions on their way up and on their way down as well.
But there must be other mule deer that are not moving, because some of the hunts are happening in 2B before these would ostensibly get back, right?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Witt, that's our speculation, right? Is definitely resident populations probably smaller. That's why we have much lower success rates on those earlier October hunts, less of an impact, and that's why we didn't reduce tons of those licenses. I think part of it is just a sheer number of our captures. Again, we only were able to get 15. We were hoping to get 110. And so we'll capture more. I think, this is representative of those 15, whether it's representative of the entire population right now, it's hard to say. I think when we capture more, we'll have a better understanding. I think the other thing that we see too, and we kind of know, we just don't know how that pattern hits, is we know Colorado have deer that don't fully go all the way into New Mexico on winter range. So do they join together on summer range? We see that in some of the doe population. We don't know about that on the male segment, right? So we don't know rut patterns if they move a lot more. And so again, this is kind of the first snapshot on like, okay, are these movements really consistent with the does? So far it seems that way in the spring, but we don't know what happens come fall rut time period. Do they behave differently than the greater segment of the female population?
Okay, cool. It'll be fascinating to see this unfold. Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Lopez.
Chief Lighty, Apache Nation. Did you all collaborate, or is Colorado going to collaborate with the Jicarillas on this collaring program?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Lopez, we've talked with the Jicarilla and there's discussions around it. And so I think there's aspects of if they'll actually put radio transmitters on or not. I don't think we have the firmed up decision on that, but we are sharing that data. In fact, right now, today, the San Juan Working Group, which is made up of Colorado Parks and Wildlife, New Mexico Department of Wildlife, Jicarilla, and Southern Ute, is meeting today to discuss some of this data and other just management aspects. So I think there's potential for some more collaboration. But again, I think saturation of transmitters, right? We're talking about 240-ish type transmitters being put on bucks in this region, both in Colorado and New Mexico. I think we're going to see a lot, right? We see these one pathways. Are they that narrow, or are we going to see a little bit more movement? I think right now, I don't want to jump to big conclusions based off the 15 transmitters we have here, but I do think we'll see different movement patterns as we get a lot more radio collared. And if we spread that collaring period out through time, right? We captured in March, but we're going to try to start capturing in New Mexico right after the January 15th bow hunt next year and spread that capture out through the winter time. That might get us a different sample size of the population.
Commissioner Clemente.
We can go to the southwest part of the presentation where in the unit 23 and 24. Can you explain me a little bit why it was how it came out about and why whenever somebody's not successful in those units, they can come back and harvest a doe? Can you explain me on that? Yeah. What was the reason of that?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Clemente, yeah, I appreciate that. I failed to mention. So we've worked in collaboration with the Silver City, the town of Silver City, to create kind of a management hunt for doe harvest within around city limits, just of a high density of deer in that general kind of suburbs. It's an archery hunt. We discussed a lot of options with the city and members that lived in that area about trying to reduce the population, and really harvest of does was the way to do it. So we came about, we originally did population management hunts that were kind of your fourth choice, on your application. That worked okay. Then we moved to this situation about 8 years ago, that people that drew those archery tags in those units that were unsuccessful could go back and harvest a doe. And why it came about now is just more of the general public saying in the comments in the last 4 years, like, I would have put in for that specific hunt as a sole use to go harvest a doe. And really it's trying to deal with, we have a map on our website. It's a limited area, so it's not the entirety of 23-24. It's really targeted harvest of deer in and around the Silver City limits.
Me if I'm wrong. Whenever I started here as a commissioner, we had a presentation that the department used to relocate deer from that area, if I'm not mistaken. And the relocations were pretty successful, if I'm not mistaken. It was in the 80-90% success rates. If it's to reduce population, to control population, why we're not continue with relocating deer to enhance other areas of deer populations? That's one of my questions. The other question is creating a hunt, providing a hunt instead of an incentive type of deal for management control. You're not providing something that then, if you meet the goals or the population reduces, you're going to have to take away from the hunters. You actually, to me, you're creating more of a set, providing a set number of tags versus managing a population.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Clemente. So those number of licenses came about of what we're trying to speculate on success rates in terms of the set numbers. I'll address the translocation in a second, but in terms of the license numbers that we came up, that's what we were trying to achieve. We're hoping that we'll see about 30 to 40% success rate on those 50 licenses on public and 20 on private. I think if we don't see that success rate and we see issues to where either hunters didn't go out or we had much lower success, that's when we could still use a population management hunt after the fact to meet that management goal. So if those license numbers aren't meeting management goals, we could always issue another population management hunt within the mid-cycle, and that would come through the fourth choice. In terms of translocation, we definitely saw high success early on, like the first 6 to 8 months of the translocation. About year 2, we started seeing declines in survival on that. One of the biggest concerns that we've had with translocation and translocation of cervids is potentially spreading chronic wasting disease. GMU 24 doesn't have it now, but when you get into those higher concentration of deer, that's when you're going to have greater potential for chronic wasting disease or disease to set in. And so some of our big concern was trying to human-induced mediation and moving a disease around from that population standpoint. I think it still could be looked at as a potential management tool. The other aspect was it's all private land where we were working on, and trying to work with the private landowners to get capture started weaning after, or what happened is we were able to, those lands where we were able to get capture, we were pulled in, did really well in the first year or two, captured that population kind of out of those few pieces of private land. And then after that, our success rates dropped a lot. We just weren't having the deer come in because we reduced it there. And those other lands where we weren't getting permission, we saw it kind of stick there. So I think we had a diminishing return. We moved a lot in the first 2 years. I think it was close to 200 deer that we moved out of there, and then just diminished return after that.
Thank you, Commissioner Clemente. I know in the beginning of all this, talking with the Hickory Nation, and they wanted to create this quality hunt, and there was a lot of support in that. So I'm glad we followed through with that. I think everything else, as far as the caps go, It's interesting to see that the numbers are not any lower. If anything, they're higher. So I support that. And anybody else have anything else? No. Thank you, Chief Liley. Let's move on to public. Let's start with David Heft.
Chair, Commissioners, David Heft, Mayo. I'm one of those old timers that remember the days when we had 120,000 deer hunters out there, and there were ways to get around it. You could still find the bucks and stuff, and use the crowds to your advantage. Overall, I think the department's done about as good a job as they can. I mean, this is a really tough species to manage here in the Southwest. What it gets down to, based on my career, is habitat, habitat, habitat. And right now we're in a cycle where we're just not going to support the deer herds we used to have. And the importance of that is shown, when you do get these populations where they have to go in and do work, it's either around irrigated agricultural areas or it's in suburban areas where people have irrigated lawns and ornamental plantings, nutrition. I mean, if you've done any deer management in the Southwest, you know that you can increase the quality and quantity of deer quite a bit, if you supply some nutrition for them. I think, some of the reductions in 34 is a good thing. I've seen the days when we were just covered up with deer in those areas, 34 and 30, and we're just not going to get them anymore. I think there's some other factors affecting deer that'll make a comment on later. But overall, I think the department's done a good job, and Stewart and his folks are to be congratulated. And we're not going to make everybody happy, but thank you.
Thank you, David. Kirk Kennedy.
I want to know how I get one of them quality units. I'm from the Northeast, and the problem I have with what you did, the cap, I believe in the cap. Not all landowners take care of what it is, but one problem with the cap is being in the hunting business 4 years ago, we were hunting 20 people. Now we can't. And I don't know where all the numbers came from, just specifically for the Northeast and not state general. Another big problem I have with the proposal is, as a private landowner, 56, there's 7 public tags, 75 public tags, 56 private tags. 78% of the ground in 56 is private. And we get 20 less tags. 22% is the public. 57, it's 124 private. The cap is, there's 120 public. The percentage of private land is 84%, 16% public. 58, 80 private tags, 170 public, 79% and 21%. 59, 95 private, 150 public, 75, 25 private and public. Not all the state is like that. I understand that. But that up there, what's going to happen, we're supporting all of them. All of you want the open opportunities. The draw, everyone get to hunt. I understand that. But if you're going to have the landowners that are taking care of your wildlife, putting out the salt, fixing the fences, providing the habitat, as you were discussing, and wanting to enhance the deer, you're going to take all their incentives away or add it to the public? I don't see the deer like we used to. And I know it's a very hard job of what he's doing, but this is not right. This can't be fair. And we don't come to the meetings. We don't have 80% of them were public hunters that made their comments. but I don't comment. I don't come as much as I used to. I've been in the hunting business for 48 years, fourth generation rancher. My grandkids is going to be sixth generation rancher. We want to be there. It's a lovely place in the world. And we do have the habitat. We have the hay fields. They're on private land. So that's where my problem is with the northeast corner.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Carrie Romero.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I'm going to surprise you guys because this is not a comment on behalf of the outfitting industry. It's just on behalf of a mom who has kids that have hunted that youth hunt. And I know Stuart is laughing because he's not crazy about this idea. But I'm the comment that said split the GMU 8 youth hunt. And the reason for that is because I'm not sure that you know this, but they're rebuilding the crest house on top of the Sandias. And so the Sandia Crest Road is going to be closed from right now. It's closed at the 10K trailhead, which prevents access to that parking lot, also to the Ellis Trail, which is the cat track that goes out to the top of the ski area, and then also the top of the crest. And so it just seems like this is not a hill I'm going to die on, but it just seems like it's going to be really, really crowded. And so then it's to the point, well, why wouldn't you also split the adult hunts? And maybe you do split the adult hunts. I don't know. But the adults are a lot more capable of utilizing the other access points to the Sandia that are much more like hiking based. Really, the Crest Road is the only thoroughfare that's really friendly to youth hunters because it's got a lot of parking areas and you only have to, you're hiking like 3 miles rather than 15 miles from the Three Guns trailhead or something like that. And the Albuquerque side, yeah, there's a lot of access points, but some of those access points, like at the top of Candelaria, they don't even have a parking structure. It's a neighborhood and they say no parking everywhere. And so, yeah, it's good walking access, but it's not friendly to kids. And it's very steep on that west side. The east side's steep too, but the Crest Road helps facilitate access. And, during November, I think you might see, I don't know that this will happen, but I think you might even see that arm bar right at the ski area close. And so that's going to close, another 3 parking lots in the Sandias. So I could see the writing on the wall is that you might get a lot of complaints from youth hunter parents during that hunt. So why not split them between Thanksgiving and Christmas rather than all at Thanksgiving? That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Brandon Wynn.
Thank you, Chair Stump, Commissioners. So on the private land, public land tags, to look at private land to public land ratio as a dividing line or a criteria for dividing tags, it ignores the fact that all the wildlife is public, right? And the state doesn't own it. The New Mexico Court of Appeals on June 3rd kind of clarified a little bit. I mean, they reaffirm mostly, but that the state doesn't even own the wildlife. It's the trustee for all New Mexicans of the wildlife. And so what the various states have done to kind of deal with incentives and private land contributions and problems for private land is they do more of an incentive than New Mexico. So New Mexico privatizes tags at roughly a 10 times rate of any other Western state. And the reason for that is because the other states recognize the public trusteeship of the wildlife. And so what I would suggest for New Mexico as a compromise between what we have now, which is a one-sided giveaway to the private landowners of the tags, would be to, when you give a landowner tags, say you give a landowner 10 tags, one of those tags should be a public hunter, and that's the Utah model. So like in Utah on their premier hunting ranch, don't worry, Commissioner Clemente, I'm watching that clock. And so what Utah does, the premier private ranch in Utah, like Utah's Vermejo is Deseret Ranch. It's 225,000 acre ranch. There's 700 permits assigned to that ranch, right? And that's across elk, deer, moose, and pronghorn. And 65% of those permits are public permits. So they're on private land. And so the landowner gets about 35% of the permits, and the landowner makes a bucket load of money selling those permits. They're super high value. It's super high quality hunting, some of the best hunting in the world for all those species. And the public, Utah resident public, gets 65%. So if you look at all of our privatization, tag privatization rules, we don't have a line in our rules or our statutes that requires any sort of public benefit. So we have some, what I characterize as reverse negative public access. So like unit wide area said, that's great. Well, it's 65,000 acres, 650,000 acres of public access in return for 9.9 million acres of private access to public land. So we have the opposite of what other states do. So I just think that you should have a requirement in all your rules that if there's a private tag, there's a public tag ratio attached to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. Is there anyone online?
Mr. Chair, there is Travis Edwards, if you'd like to speak.
Go ahead, Travis.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Yeah, my name is Travis Edwards. I'm a lifelong New Mexico resident, public land hunter. So on the deer overall, I like the proposals the department is making. I feel like they really listened on doing some cuts and tags for, down the southeast and 2B to make a more better quality hunt, better hunter satisfaction. So I do appreciate that. Also creating some more opportunity with a couple Coues deer hunts in the Gila. Again, just some opportunity there, and I appreciate it. Specific on the private land sales, I think there's some positive things there. I like the ranch registration, only allowing license to be sold before the hunt begins, and the caps in place. I think those are all good steps to the overall over-the-counter private land system. The one negative I would have with the caps is just kind of how they're calculated. It looks like it's purely done on historical license sales, and so while again the caps are good, I think are a good step. It seemed like more data or more factors should be brought in to see, what should these caps be at? It should be, I don't see anything in biological data. Maybe, there's in a unit we're only 10% private, and maybe the department thinks that there's only been, a certain amount of bucks taken out based on the density of bucks or deer on the private. None of that stuff seems to be in the factor at all. It's just really what is the historical sales. So if right now we're giving too many private land tags are being sold, or for what the density is, there's really no adjustment there. It's just based off its historical. So I don't know. I would encourage the commission to maybe have the department provide more data on what they're looking at, or provide other factors what they're looking at on setting these caps, just to be more biologically sound. So, but again, overall, I appreciate the caps being put in there compared to what it is now. So that's all I got. Thanks again for the work the department's doing. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Travis. Anyone else?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, there's also Cody. Cody, you can speak now.
Go ahead, Cody.
Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
You're kind of muffled.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. Cody Krieger here, lifelong New Mexico resident. Public land hunter, private land hunter. Anywhere I can get me and my family to tag is my goal. So comments on the deer proposed changes. I'd like to bring up that I think all of the premium statewide tags shouldn't be a hunt code in the draw. I think putting it as an additional raffle type draw, not exactly a raffle, you can only get one entry during the draw process for anyone, like a non-refundable chance to get that tag, similar to the way Nevada does the Silver State tag and Arizona does the Copper State tag, to give everybody some more opportunity to get a tag, and it also bring a good amount of revenue to the department, I would think, doing a premium statewide tag like that. And then on ranch registration, like I said in the last meeting, ranch registration is a no for me and many other public and private opportunistic hunters out there. A lot of hunting permission that we get when we don't draw a tag is last minute when we can find somebody. And a lot of the time it's properties that they don't even hunt. So they're not going to be registered. It's going to be a no as far as having a ranch code to buy a tag. So I don't think people realize that ranch registration actually will hinder a lot of hunting opportunity, and it'll put it back in the hands of big ranches and outfitters that have it all leased out. So just trying to speak on behalf of hunters that can't buy our way to the front, and we're just trying to hunt and take our family hunting. And then the caps, I think caps should be looked into a little more than just historical license sales. Some herd quality data should be put into that and make some good judgment on the caps as far as harvest sustainability. That's all I got. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Cody. Anyone else, Eric?
Mr. Chair, lastly, it's Bernard.
Go ahead, Bernard.
Good morning, everybody. This is Bernard Inez, Director, Hickory Game and Fish Department. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for this meeting and opportunity to speak in full support of what has been proposed for the reduction of Unit 2B. You guys are all well aware. We've been talking for quite some time right now, as well as I'm speaking on behalf of the Hickory Apache Nation's people in support of this reduction. Chief Lively, appreciate giving that great presentation, and I am looking forward to working with you in the very near future on how we can partner up to collect some more data for both sides of the fence. I want to wish everybody a upcoming 4th and be safe, and thanks again.
Thank you, Bernard. Is that everybody, Eric?
Mr. Chair, it is.
Okay. Chief Lively, thank you for that great presentation as always. We anticipate a hearing on this rule at our August meeting. Moving on to agenda number 9 is a subsequent discussion of proposed changes to the elk rule 19.31.14 NMAC. As with the deer rule, this is subsequent discussion, so comment and direction are important prior to development of the draft final rule. Whenever you're ready, start.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, as like the deer and like you just stated, this is the subsequent discussion. Our plan is to have the hearing in August for this, and we'd take any commission direction today if you see something different from the proposals that we're presenting in front of you. Just like I did with deer, I'll go through a little bit of background with elk on kind of some of the biology and management strategies that we have across the state. What you'll see here is kind of what we have as our elk management zones. Those that are kind of colored there are specific herd units, or more or less what we think is a cohesive herd or population. We probably have a little bit more intel on elk than we do on deer, more distinct in kind of some of the ranges, but we definitely see elk spraying out into different areas. So those colored areas are those, again, kind of more distinct herd units. We'll refer to them as a herd unit, for example, North Central herd or the Hamus herd, which might encompass multiple GMUs. The other thing that you see here is our different management zones. So we have 3 different management zones for elk across the state. We have primary management zones. Those are 32 GMUs. That's where, and it's a little bit hard to see here, but it's that hashed, gray hashed on top of those colored units. And that's what we declare as kind of our primary management zone, where we set specific herd objectives and try to manage towards those objectives in those GMUs and those across those herds. We have two different objectives, either optimal opportunity or quality hunt management. We'll get to that in a second on what those look like. And then we have the majority of the rest of the state where it's secondary management zone. So that's kind of where there is no hash marks at all across there. So that's where we're not trying to set a specific herd management goal, a lot of private land. It's maybe areas that are maybe suboptimal for elk, or where it's high agriculture, where we have kind of more depredation concerns with elk, where we have either irrigated fields, where we're not trying to manage towards a specific goal. More on a general harvest within those, and maybe in some of those areas actually trying to reduce or prevent establishment of elk in there. And our third very small kind of management zone is our special management zone. That's in the very kind of north central, a little bit northeast, along the eastern edge of the Sangre de Cristos in the north, where it's almost entirely private land, 95+% private land. But we do have specific management goals for those herds. They overlap with some of our public lands in there, and we're trying to set objectives. So we work with those private landowners on a case-by-case basis to set harvest goals and license allocations. I forgot to mention in the primary, those are set by rule, license allocation to private landowner on the based upon public-private split within those primary management zones. Secondary management zone is over the counter on those private deeded properties only there. Real quick, just looking at the last 4 years or so, 5 years of harvest, you'll see kind of a dividing zone in there. That's based upon the last rule cycle, the previous one, the last 2 years, the previous rule cycle, and then this current 3-year rule cycle. The one thing that I think I'd point out is fairly consistent cow harvest, maybe a little bit of an increase. That's purposeful. We tried to increase some cow harvest in the South Sacramento herd, or the GMU 34. And then you'll see a decrease in bull harvest. That was intentional as well, mainly trying to decrease bull harvest in the Gila elk herd at the last rule cycle. Reporting harvest has remained fairly consistent through time, as well as success rate. I mentioned a few minutes ago just our two different management strategies that we have within our primary management zones, and that's quality hunt management and optimal opportunity. Quality is we're really trying to get less bull mortality and a higher or a more distributed age class of bulls, where you have a higher probability of an older age class bull. We're looking for our bull mortality rates in those GMUs or that herd to be less than 35%. We also try to design the hunt timing that it's going to be more desirable, and that we want to see at least 2/3 of our hunters that report in those units are satisfied with the hunt experience. Whereas the optimal opportunity, we're really trying to get our bull mortality rates at least below 45%. So allow for a higher bull mortality rate, which is going to be a lower bull to cow ratio and a more truncated age structure within there. That's not to say that you still couldn't find a older age class male in those optimal opportunity units, but it's going to be less likely than in our quality hunt management. And then those hunts, we want to see at least 1/3 of our hunters satisfied with the hunt experience. Real quick, just want to go through the public comments before we go through our specific proposed changes. You'll notice here, these are our public comments submitted on our individual recommendations. I do want to point out the vast majority of, this was 175 public comments as of, let's see, Tuesday evening. We've received additional almost 50 comments since then, all pertaining to the proposal to align primary management zone and secondary management zone hunts at the same time frame. So what happens there is on our secondary management zone hunts across the state right now, the season is October 1st to December 31st in illegal sporting arm. The original proposal from the department in those 21 units that had a hybrid, where they had part of the unit was primary management zone and part of the unit was secondary, was make the secondary management zone hunts align with the primary. You'll see the vast majority of those comments on elk are in opposition to that proposal. As we go through the rest of the presentation today, I think the department will look at guidance from the commission specifically on that, because it is one where we received a lot of comments on that proposal in opposition to it, and trying to gauge from the commission where they want to go. The rest of those comments, you'll see some of them are divided, right? So even on GMU 34, where we're proposing some increase in antlerless licenses, not a lot, both approve and disapprove. So not one really strong way in opposition per se. Most of the comments that we received on the rest of our proposals were in support. We had a lot of other comments that really dealt with issues that are out of either the commission's authority, such as draw quotas. We had a lot of comments on change the quotas, which is a statutory requirement, is not a commission set rule. So a lot of that in our comments as well. So in terms of just general proposals in here, like we do for all of our species, adjusting the season dates to account for calendar shift, and then aligning what we propose to do in our primary management zone, for the most part, is trying to align our hunts to where we have a muzzleloader hunt start first, followed by any legal sporting arms. And that created a lot of proposed new muzzleloader hunts across many units in the state. Part of this proposal comes in from discussions around rut timing and harvest susceptibility for bull elk. So what we're seeing, and we've seen through some of our calf mortality research, we're still seeing the peak of calving occur around June 1st in these areas. What you see in elk is you have a strong pulse. A lot of times, like the peak will be June 1st, plus or minus 5 days is where you have 95% of the calves being born. What's happening most recently with elk is you still have the peak on June 1st for our calving, but it's being extended out a lot longer. So calves are being born further into June, into July in some instances. And so what most likely is happening is cows are not coming into estrus all at the same time in the fall. And we're seeing not quite a bimodal rut season, but a prolonged rut to where when those cows come back into estrus that didn't come in during the peak, they're still being bred. And I think what you're seeing is those bulls being more active into the latter part, mid-October, 1st of October. So part of this proposal was to reduce susceptibility to those bulls that are coming on more peak in that quote unquote look like rut when those cows come into that second cycle of estrus. We try to do this so we didn't have to reduce licenses to still meet our harvest objective goals by creating these new muzzleloader hunts and then moving those rifle hunts a little bit later when bulls are less susceptible to harvest. That proposal number 3 is again the one that I discussed that had the most comments on it, of aligning those start dates within GMUs that have primary and secondary management zones to make it the secondary start the same as the primary. We're probably up to over 100 comments now. I showed you on the last slide, it was about 66. We're a little over 100 comments now in opposition to that. And then the next bullet point is, and maybe this is for some clarity because we saw some comments, is to minimize the overlap of weapons used. What that is like I discussed in deer. So if we had a rifle deer hunt, we didn't want to have a muzzleloader elk hunt were at the same time. So the weapon type was the same for multiple species at the same time if we had to have overlapping deer and elk hunts per se. So we try to minimize that as much as possible. We'll get through the license adjustments by the herd units as we go along. And then just like deer, designate that statewide hunt as a quality hunt. And then all of our rules, and this will be a point for our November meeting. When we get done with all of the species rule proposals and rules, we'll have to change some manner and method items that will, because of what we did in the individual species rules, it will require that. So in November, we'll bring to you a manner and method cleanup rule, if you will, of all that to account for what was changed in individual species rules. One of that is the discussion that we've had all along on this is requiring the license to be purchased a day prior to the start of the hunt. And then if the hunt's less than 6 days, you can't buy the license once the hunt starts. We looked at potential adjustments to our primary management zone boundary or secondary management zone boundaries. After looking at it, and we're not proposing any changes to those zone boundaries right now. We think that zone boundaries fit fairly well to meet the management objective goals that we have for both primary and secondary and special. And then we always look at if there's been big land changes in public-private split in the primary, we'll adjust that because that's how we set licenses based off the public-private split in the primary. There was no changes in the land composition between public and private in the primary, so no changes in those license splits. So working down the different herd units, the San Juan herd, so that's GMU2, fairly stable population. We are looking at an increase in cow licenses there. We're probably seeing that elk population grow. This is where we kind of just discussed our 2B deer discussion too. We're seeing more elk in there. We're trying to stabilize that population with an additional cow harvest, maybe even slightly reduce it. We're proposing an increase of 50 draw tags for antlerless during the draw, and then creating 2 new youth encouragement hunts of 75 licenses each in Unit 2. Those would occur around Thanksgiving and then again at Christmas. Mount Taylor herd, so GMU9, that's also where the Elbar Wildlife Management, Elbar Marquez is. We're proposing no changes to there. That herd's maybe starting to stabilize, maybe even increase a little bit. Our calf to cow ratios historically have been really low in that area. We're starting to see some improvement in there over the last 4 years as well. Lindrith herd, that's GMU5A. We're proposing no changes to overall license numbers in the Lindrith herd, but we are proposing moving one of those rifle hunts to a muzzleloader hunt. That first, like we discussed in all these primary management zones, having a muzzleloader first followed by rifle. So that would be a new muzzleloader hunt of 10. Again, no overall changes to license numbers. In the Zuni herd, we feel pretty stable on that population and no changes recommended there. Moving to the North Central herd, North Central consists of 5 different GMUs, 4, 5B, 50, 51, 52. Largest probably herd in the state. We do see different herd dynamics. It is a migratory herd in there. What we are proposing, and we'll get more specific in the next slide, is an increase in antlerless licenses in 51. We're looking at one of the graphics you see there is kind of some of the winter use in that area. So 51 probably has the highest concentrations of winter use in there. We've had through multiple years since 2014, multiple population management hunts to address kind of depredation concerns of wintering elk in 51. We're looking at increasing some of those licenses to address some of that. You know, the 52 side of that really those elk move out of their higher elevation and are not in there in the winter time. So again, the proposal is increasing, slight increase of cow licenses in 51, moving the public draw up by 18 tags, and then increasing the youth encouragement hunt by 20 antlerless licenses. The other thing we are proposing is creating new muzzleloader hunts in 4, 5B, 50, and 51. In 4, it'd be 2 new muzzleloader hunts of 10 apiece. One of those being on the Sargent Wildlife Management Area, and then one being the Humphreys Rio Chama Wildlife Management Area. And then in 5B, we're proposing a new muzzleloader hunt in there. Overall, it would be an increase of 19 mature bull licenses in there from current. Again, we took it and looked at success rates being at muzzleloader lower. We felt like we would maintain the same harvest by having this new muzzleloader hunt in there. So we were allowed to increase those hunts by 19. 50 was the same. We think harvest will remain the same, but we'll allow a 20 more mature bull licenses in the form of muzzleloader. The Jemez region, that's 6A through C and 7, that population's fairly stable, but we've seen pretty low recruitment. Mainly that lower recruitment is calf to cow ratios, and on the Valles Caldera, we're running in the 20s to 30s. It's a little bit variable. You'll see, I think that 2004, 24 result was a spurious result. That was just probably observer error. Overall, though, you're still in the 25 to 30 calf to cow ratio, a little bit higher last year in our calf to cow ratio from some previous years, 35 to 100. So the Southwest units, in the Fence Lake herd, we're proposing a new muzzleloader hunt of 35 licenses in that unit. And then the Dattle herd, no changes. We've had muzzleloader hunts. That's a muzzleloader unit only. San Mateo herd, again, muzzleloader unit as well. No changes to that. I think one of our greater changes of overall license numbers that we want to kind of focus in on is in our Southwest and the Gila elk herd. We undertook a very large study in the Gila elk herd starting about 2017, 18, wrapping up about 2022, 23. You'll see here, we're really getting into some reduced recruitment, lower calf to cow ratios through time. I think it's some drought impacts. We'll get into more graphics there. That's historically been our quality hunt management area where we've had managing for older age class males. And we're starting to see, and this is where we're looking at, this graphic is looking at our proportion of observed bulls that are mature. And so we're classifying a mature bull roughly about a 4-year, 5-year-old bull or older. The darker color in those bars is mature bull compared to the overall. So you're seeing a little bit of a decline in that mature bull to bull, not real significant, but there's probably been some decline in more recent history. We're seeing maybe a turnaround in that a little bit in the last year. What we did in the last rule cycle was reduce bull licenses by almost 30%, 25% in that. We're not looking at changing bull licenses in there. One of the things that we are proposing is making a lot of that first rifle hunt in those units that don't have a rifle, a muzzleloader. What this is a muzzleloader hunt. What this is looking at. So at the last rule cycle, there was a rule that changed that you can no longer have a scope on a muzzleloader. That was an effort to reduce success rates, so we didn't have to reduce licenses. Those black, or excuse me, the darker green is showing those hunts when scopes were allowed versus the lighter green where scopes are not allowed. And so you do see a slight reduction in those success rates across all the different hunts. So it's allowing us to harvest in terms of a overall harvest number. We could have more licenses to achieve the same harvest. It's anywhere from 5 to 10% difference on some of those hunts on our success rates dropping. Really where we see the biggest drop is when we get closer to that rut period. So the closer we get to October 1st, that muzzleloader success rate has gone from almost 48% down to some of those hunts as low as 35%. I don't have the individual specific hunts. These are combined hunts for the entire GMU is why you can't see that individual differences. The biggest thing in the Gila herd, and I mentioned the study that we undertook, this was in cooperation with Arizona Game and Fish as well. We radio collared over 900 adult cow elk in there and over 500 calves across that time period. And what we're looking at on the top graphic is cause of or adult survival and calf survival. Top graph is adult survival. Bottom graph is calf survival. What you see on the top graph is 2 different bars. That top bar is if we exclude harvest mortality, that's what our survival would be. So our cow survival is ranging around 90% if we exclude our harvest mortality. But when you include harvest mortality in there, you're down at the 75 to 80%. So unsustainable from a population level. We really need to be in that 85+% almost to sustain a stable population. So a declining trend in that. The other thing you see there in that excuse me, in that bottom graphic is overall calf survival split by season. So you'll notice we had fairly high and consistent winter survival of calves. Once they reached 6 months old, we had fairly high survival across. But that first 3, really the first 20 days, 30 days, really low survival. So you'll see, mortality rates that were almost 75% of those calves were dying in the first 20 days or so. Breaking that out a little bit more on kind of cause of mortality. This is adult female mortality. So if you look at that graphic on the left, if you include hunter harvest in there, you'll notice the largest proportion of mortality in our cow elk herd is hunter mortality, right? So that's that anthropogenics. ANT stands for anthropogenic or human harvest, followed by mountain lion, other predation. Predation unknown is PUP. Unknown is where they maybe didn't get to the carcass in time to be able to tell, and then wolf. We really wanted to look at, part of this study was looking at as the wolf population continued to grow in that region, wanted to see potential effects of that. If we exclude hunter harvest from that, that's that next graphic to really look at a predation of outside of hunter harvest. You know, other predation or other causes such as roadkill was a large one. Mountain lion and wolf were pretty equal across the other predation factors. Digging a little bit more into predation and calves. So you look here at summer survival, as I mentioned, was pretty low for calves. You'll see there that bar on the top graphic is, you know, as low as or excuse me, this is the percent of mortality per, if you remember from the previous graph, we had as high as 70% mortality in the summer. This is the cause of that summer mortality. Human mortality is very low, as you would expect. We don't have hunting going on in the summer for calves. That anthropogenic mortality is like road kills, for example. So we do still have road strikes on it. But you'll notice most of our predators, so it's bear, coyote, feline, bobcat, and mountain lion combined. Other sources, predation unknown, unknown cause, and wolf, they're fairly consistent across. Those error bars overlap, so there's not one that really stands out. And then winter mortality, you'll see, again, really not one big cause over the other. We do have a little bit of hunter harvest on that calves once they reach the fall. That right graphic, though, kind of splits out where we separated out survival across a gradient of what we considered wolf exposure or wolf density. So we have one where we have no known wolf packs or very low wolf density, and some with moderate or high density. And you do see in that moderate to high density on that right, where our wolf predation, the very most wolf bar shows that wolf predation in the summer does kind of come out as one of the leading causes in there. It's more or less tied with some of our other coyote, bear, and others, but it does show a little bit higher in our higher wolf density, which we would expect where wolves are, that would be higher than in our no to low wolf density. So with all that said, really given the information we had there, populations are declining. It's in that Gila region, and really it's being driven right now by human harvest on adult survival that we can control, a controllable factor. Calf survival was low, probably driven everything from drought to multiple predators. But what we're proposing here is a decrease in about 20 to 30% antlerless harvest across the region. Some units as high as 30%, but you'll see the average in there across those 4 units, 15, 16A, C, D, and E. Net decrease to 278 draw licenses. The other proposal is to eliminate all the youth encouragement hunts in the Gila elk herd. So we had those hunts around Thanksgiving and November. We'll get into a graphic of that in a second across the state on youth encouragement hunts. The other thing that we're proposing is shifting those cow hunts a little bit earlier in the season. When we have cow hunts that get into mid-November into December, success rates increase, higher susceptibility to harvest on cow elk then. So you'll see we propose moving some of those hunts into late October, early November. So we didn't have to go as high of a decrease in draw hunts. We think because moving those hunts closer into that time frame, we're going to see decrease in success as well. That will relate into an overall decrease rather than keeping the seasons at the same and had to go at a much steeper cut. Again, like our other units that we discussed in the state, creating a muzzleloader hunt first, followed by rifle hunts. That's where we look at a net increase of 125 bulls across all that units. That's because of lower success rates on those bull hunts. The other big thing to note is those units will have rifle bull hunts starting mid-October or later now. Right now, those bull hunts in this last rule cycle came up as early as October 4th when we had high susceptibility to bulls in that region. So we didn't feel like we had to cut bull tags because we're moving those hunts later as well. And we see once we get past mid-October on rifle bull hunts, for the most part, we see not a real steep decline, but we definitely see 5 to 10% decrease in success rates. The lesser Gila herds, so kind of those periphery units, we really didn't feel like we needed to change much there. Not a lot of licenses in there, but we're pretty stable in those units for the most part. You'll notice the asterisk around those ratios. That's just a function of limited survey observations. I wouldn't trust that data too much. There are only 350 animals observed, so I think we'll focus a little bit more survey effort in there. The one thing that we are looking at is creating a new muzzleloader hunt in GMU 21. Moving on to the southeast region, we have kind of we call it 2 herd units. It really functions as 1 herd unit, the Sacramento herd and the Rio Doso herd, but what's in the center of that is Mescalero Apache. And so Mescalero manages their herd separately from the department, but I would say that we've been working in a lot more cooperation with Mescalero in recent history. We were hoping to deploy 60 GPS collars this winter on Mescalero. We had some issues with collars getting stuck in customs, and then also we had issues with, like I mentioned, on our deer. The bearing went out in the helicopter, and so our capture helicopter. So we're waiting to deploy those next year. We'll deploy all 60 of those radio collars in cooperation with Mescalero to get a better idea of herd dynamics across both the north and the south. The proposals in there are to increase some antlerless opportunities. In 34, we're proposing 60 more draw hunts. And then an increase of 100 youth encouragement hunts. And then in the Rio Doso herd is increasing the youth encouragement hunt by 60. Looking at kind of some of the herd units in the Northeast, really not any changes proposed in any of these herds, fairly stable across most of these herds in the Northeast. The one that we are looking at proposing to change is a slight reduction in the Viavidal herd. That's their once in a lifetime herd. Calf to cow ratios are fairly low in that herd. We're looking at a reduction of 15 draw licenses in there. This is the units that I mentioned early on about where we have special management zones that surround that. We'll be working with private landowners next year at looking probably reductions in antlerless harvest in there as well to kind of maintain that herd and stabilize it. And so that's on a ranch by ranch basis and those authorizations. But definitely a little bit of a decrease in cow harvest there is what we're trying to achieve. And then those secondary management zone units. So again, secondary management zone, it's not where we don't have a set harvest management goals. There's also some of these areas where we're either seeing elk coming into new or starting to grow, but where we also have public lands in there where we have some hunt opportunities. So in GMU 29 and 30, that herd continues to expand. We're proposing right now there's 2 either sex hunts. We're proposing to create a new antlerless hunt of 20 licenses in there. In GMU 32, that would be kind of just to the west, or excuse me, to the east of Mescalero, east of 34, 36. We're also seeing elk start to populate that area on some public land where we think we have an opportunity for 2 new rifle hunts in there of 15 licenses apiece. And in 38, that would be the Capitans. We're looking at increasing our either sex hunts from 10 to 20 on the public draw side of things. I mentioned some of the youth encouragement hunts where we are looking at creating new hunts or increasing. So in GMU 2 is creating those 2 new youth encouragement hunts of 75 antlerless, both in the November period and the December period. In 51, we're proposing increasing the November hunt by 10. And then in 34, the December one, we're proposing increasing that by 100 licenses. And then in 36, each one of those 2 youth encouragement hunts by 110. This is where we have the increase at ones. This is, you'll see where the overall numbers. But I do want to point out, this is kind of in the Gila 15, 16A through E, that's where we do see that reduction. So a fairly large reduction in those hunts, 420 less in the Gila. That's where a lot of our harvest pressure was coming in on those herds, was during those late November, late December cow youth encouragement hunts. We tried to redistribute those to other GMUs where we felt like the populations could withstand it. But overall, it is a little bit of a net decrease in youth encouragement hunts, and it's a function of just that Gila elk herd not being able to withstand that antlerless pressure. And with that, I would take any questions.
Great presentation, Stuart. Thank you. Commissioners? So I know there was a lot of input on a lot of input. Like I had over 100 emails on the PMZ SMZ. Commissioners, do you have any thoughts about that?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Lopez.
I too received a lot of emails, and I'll let the public know. I read every single email that came from regarding the special management zone, and the 110% of the emails I got and read through and replied are against the measure. And being that District 3 has a lot of SMZs in District 3 and in support of small business and hunters, I'm not going to support that change.
Thank you, Commissioner Lopez. Commissioner Clemente.
Thank you everyone for sending the emails. As well as Commissioner Lopez, I did receive quite a few emails. And I can say that only one email was just to look more into it, but the majority of the emails was against the change.
Thank you, Commissioner Clemente. Commissioner Witt, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. I want to start on the very last thing you showed, which was the adjustments of the numbers of tags across a series of units, and I wanted to ask about the big increases that kind of stood out there in GMU 34 and 36. I think it was 100 more. Was it November rifle or in 34, December rifle in 34, and then 60 more November and December rifle in 36. What are those supported by? Is that biological data that's gone into that?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Witt, yes. And so I think what we have, especially in 34, even during this last drought periods, we've seen high calf to cow ratios in there. I think we've also seen some expanding populations. I think it's a function of conservative harvest by Mescalero, to be honest. So both 34 and 36 are separated by Mescalero. I think we're reaping the benefits of conservative harvest of Mescalero. It's a source sink issue, I think, going on there to where Mescalero becomes the source for that harvest. This has been something we've been looking at for over 20 years, where we've increased licenses significantly in 34 and 36, but we still see maybe expansion of the herds and maybe even some growth. I think what will really help is when we get these radio collars on in this winter is to better understand like how big that source sink dynamic is. Do those animals move onto a refugia during some of this harvest season? But from a standpoint of the population, yes, we believe we could withstand that harvest. That will at least maybe try to stabilize those populations or maybe slightly reduce it. I think there's been a lot of discussion, and if you go all the way back to the comments, this was with a one that had other comments, both support and opposition. It was about even support, even opposition, not one or the other. I think what we do definitely hear from some private individuals and some grazing permittees is they really would like us to see a reduction in these elk herds overall. And then you have some opposing factors where they'd like to see us grow. And so from a perspective of will it be able to sustain? Yes, I think absolutely, including these other units where we had some minor increases or where we created new ones in GMU2, where we think that growing population in GMU2 could sustain more elk rifle tags to either stabilize or reduce that growing population there.
All right, thanks for that answer. Yeah, because it is complicated as you indicated, but I'm hearing from you that you're comfortable with the biological justification for the reduction, that we're not going to send that GMU 34, 36 herd on a negative trajectory. Is that right?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Witt, it might be in a slight negative trajectory, which I think we would be okay with from the current status of that population. We've been trying to stabilize it for the last 15, 20 years. I don't know. I think this potentially might, but not to the point where we're going to come back and have to cut 50% of licenses or something like that because of that. I think this will be a definitely little bit of decrease, but how big, not. The other aspect that I think is important to note in 34, we do have the ability, if we saw that during this rule cycle, like any other unit, if we see something that we're not meeting our management objectives, we could propose to the chair of the commission at the time to an adjustment of licenses up or down by 20%. So if we think we're at a harvest rate that's unsustainable, we could propose that change for the future year within the mid-rule cycle.
Okay, thank you. Chief Lively, I'd also like to ask you to expound on two of the issues that were really important in a lot of the emails that we received. And that they have one, the first one is just has to do with aligning the hunt season start dates in GMUs that contain both primary and secondary management zones. Can you talk about a little bit more about the case in favor of doing that, the justification for doing that? Because there certainly was a lot of pushback against it.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Witt, so this I don't think is a biological issue, right? So as I kind of mentioned at the very forefront of the discussion when I was showing the lines of primary management zone versus secondary management zone, those primary management zones, we think that's where the herds majority are, and that's where we have our set specific management goals. And then outside of that, the way it currently exists is in secondary management zone, October 1 to December 31st, any legal sporting arm over the counter for secondary management zones on their private deeded land. Some of the discussions we heard in the ensuing 4 years from some public was that they kind of a fairness issue, if you will, on that those hunters in the secondary private get a hunt prior to the start of the primary management zone. I think one thing to point out, again, we definitely draw out areas to put it in the secondary because we're trying to deal with depredation or something like that. For example, I would point out like the Chama River Valley, right? From like around Abiquiu up to then in the Rio Grande Valley up from like Velarde down. Those areas are drawn specifically out of the primary management zone. There's a lot of small acreage, private deeded farm, ag land, hay fields, where we get a lot of depredation complaints. When they were in the primary management zone, they were maybe 5 to 10 acre properties. And when you're in primary, they're competing against all primary management zone ranches for allocations, and they weren't getting allocations. Harvest wasn't happening on there. We were putting up fences or we were dealing with depredation issues. When we moved that to secondary, they were able to kind of harvest those animals on those depredation fields. Our depredation complaints went way down on there. Same thing happens in like 1317. So 1317 go all the way up into the Sawtooth Daddle Mountains in 13, but come all the way down to like Santa Acacia on I-25, where you have almost, you go pure desert, some hay fields, pecan fields, those kind of things along there where you have agriculture and depredation. 17 a little bit, and 21 A is, or 21B, excuse me, is another prime example where you go from like the Black Range down all the way to chili fields and Hatch, right? And so that's why we draw those areas out, let it out of there. So the biggest support for what was there was that they start the same time as we hunt up in the mountains, right? And that's really where that proposal came from. I think the opposition on that, for the most part, that we've heard is there's concerns about those landowners being able to kind of harvest animals when they're present there in those kind of areas where we're not trying to really encourage elk is kind of some of the I got a lot of those emails as well too, and that was where the opposition kind of came in from, where right now primary secondary is working from that perspective. I would say that we did not really get any comments on adjusting those management zone boundaries. People are pretty happy with how we have the secondary primary. Is more on our comment just on should we align those hunts or not. So that it really came about a public hunting, draw hunters hunting the same time as those.
Thanks for that. I have one more, the one more issue that's, relates to the adjustments with with muzzleloader seasons. I mean, it seems like in the big picture that the department is using is expanding muzzleloader opportunities, and of course the reduction of scope usage. It's a management tool to be able to maintain opportunity while maintaining the herds by reducing hunter success rate. And so I wanted to ask you to explain whether you're considering the demand for muzzleloader opportunities and the way that hunters feel about increases in muzzleloader opportunities and the potential effects on hunter satisfaction, and especially in light of the opposition that we've seen in some of the emails.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Witt, even all of our muzzleloader hunts across the state, these are specifically for bulls, but even our cow muzzleloader hunts in the state go oversubscribed. So there's more demand than there is supply. I don't think you're going to have that issue. Like that, we'll still have a lot of demand for those muzzleloader hunts as well. I think, especially given that these are going to be the first gun hunts in these units, I think you're going to see maybe some shift of people that used to apply for that rifle hunt first. They're going to move to those muzzleloader hunts. I think there is going to be some people for sure that do not hunt with a muzzleloader, that just don't have that as many rifle tags in the state. Overall, though, the number of tags that will be able to be drawn are going to increase. So in elk, we don't have any undersubscribed hunts. So there's the potential that we're going to actually have more opportunities through time. I don't have a concern where we're going to have muzzleloader hunts that go undersubscribed, I guess is where I see that.
Is there a consideration? I genuinely don't know, but when you have muzzleloaders, and particularly muzzleloaders without scopes, do you get more wounded elk?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Witt, we don't have a great example. The only thing I would say is when we radio collared 900 elk in the Gila, like we didn't see a wound. We definitely had wounding loss in some of that. We didn't see a wounding loss differential much from muzzleloader hunts to rifle hunts. Now that was not when scopes were on, but I think what we probably saw, and this is not with empirical data, but this is more of kind of speculation. So when we had the allowance of muzzleloaders or scopes on muzzleloaders, what we were seeing was long distance, basically muzzleloaders being built. You saw people taking shots at 300-400 yards. I think what you had at that point is if the animal didn't drop, a lot of wounding loss because they didn't see an animal drop, right? But maybe absorbed a bullet, a sabot or something like that, and then died much later. Without scopes on, I think you're much closer, right? If you're gonna hit that animal, you're gonna have a much more known impact at that time. So I think you saw potential to where you didn't see a reaction from an animal at a much larger distance with scopes on, muzzleloaders on, and wounding loss was probably higher at that perspective than it is right now. All of our licenses for in general, we do factor in wounding loss when we determine licenses. We look at harvest, we suspect probably in the 15% or combined across all weapon types, roughly 15% wounding loss is what we suspect when we calculate those licenses.
Thank you. No more questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Witt. Quite a few of the emails I received are regarding muzzleloaders and older folks that can't see, me included, can't see the sights. And so that was something I would just like to point out. They felt like they were losing opportunity if they were forced to hunt muzzleloader hunts. As far as the SMZ and the PMZ situation, I feel like based on as much pushback as we had, that we should remove that from the proposed changes. If other commissioners concur with that.
I do.
Commissioner Witt, do you have anything to say about that?
No, I can go along with that change.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Stuart. Yeah, do we still have Commissioner Harwood with us?
I am here.
Do you have any opinion?
I concur with your suggestion, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Harwood. It looks like we're taking out the lining the hunt season start dates and GMUs containing both PMZ and SMZs. Let's move on to some public comment here on this issue, and let's start with Brandon.
Worst first, huh? So I was a little confused, Chief Lively, that I thought you said that did I hear you right that you said that overall the youth encouragement went up a little bit just in the 1 year? Okay. So the overall youth encouragement on your June 23rd online proposal shows a decrease of 420 youth encouragement tags. Is that correct? 21% overall from 1960 to 1560. So you had an increase in kind of the Northeast and the 34, and then you had a bigger decrease in the Gila. So you lost 750 Gila youth encouragement tags. There's 10 hunts of 75 each completely gone. So what I would suggest that the commission do, the stars are aligned right now to have some sort of at least small reform to privatization of tags in New Mexico. This is the 9th 4-year rule cycle I've attended. And I think that it's a fair statement that we've never had any sort of notable commission action to reverse any sort of privatization. It's been growth or status quo. And that's been the case this rule cycle. You know, we've just kind of kept things about the same ratio. So what I would suggest is the special management zone to kind of wade into this reform gently and do it this rule cycle, at least something, because I think it's accurate to say that we haven't done anything. The commission hasn't done anything on privatization of tags this entire cycle for all the big game rules. Minor little things, but no real, you know, even beyond a rounding number change. So the special management zone, why couldn't you do kind of like what Utah does? And I keep bringing that up for a reason because it works really well. The hunters are happy with it. The agency's happy with it. The landowners are happy with it. I've talked to a lot of people in Utah. They really like what they have, where there's a sharing of public and private hunting on private land. So in the special management zone, maybe try to make New Mexico youth whole, because New Mexico youth lost a lot of pronghorn tags and they're losing a lot of elk tags. And so in just a special management zone, just have a requirement that pick a number, figure it out with Game and Fish. 10% of the tags are going to be public tags. You could split it between bull tags and cow tags, or you could make it all cow tags, whatever you could do. But what I'm asking you is to make a good faith, listen to the public. You know, I think that, I know I say this all the time, but we're not being listened to. And I really think that the time is now to modernize the way we do things and do at least that, a small thing for the public. Thank you.
David Heft.
Chair, Commissioners, thank Chief Lively for that presentation. Just a couple comments, primarily as a former habitat manager, and I had a little discussion with Chief Lively before the meeting about this. Very cautious about trying to maintain, let alone increase elk herds in the face of the severe drought we have over much of the state right now, especially down south where NOAA also says we're long-term. It's not just a short-term situation. The other issue is that this is a new one, and Chief Lively was discussing the fact that there's been some extended calving periods. Sometimes, you know, a lot of decades-old research has shown that sometimes that's tied to the age ratios of the bull segment of the herd, where there's not enough mature bulls. It's not simply that the cows themselves are cycling multiple times, it's that they're not getting bred during that first cycle. So in some cases, that may be something to look at. Just some quick reference material. I know especially Commissioner Witt asked some questions about 34 and 36. I've run around in southern Sacramento since the 70s, lived down there in Unit 34. I can remember back in the 70s or early 80s when in a month of October, I could go on the mountain and see less than this many elk. Okay, in 2000, when we still had population objectives for elk, the population objective for 34 was 1,000 head. right now we're taking over 1,700 elk during the fall hunts. And I noticed the department's not giving a population estimate anymore on 34. So they're still trying to get a handle down there. And the population is doing a good job of trying to figure out what's going on in there, because that herd just doesn't seem to be able to get knocked down. So just some general comments there. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Carrie Romero.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner. So I had a whole big spiel, but it sounds like you heard our voice on the SMZ PMZ thing. So I just want to say thank you. Add a couple of little data points. So landowners have been able to sell tags in the secondary that begin October 1st since October of 2005. So this is over 20 years that we've been doing this, which is why I think that you've seen just such a strong response. It's distracting. That's okay. Okay. Now I completely lost my train of thought. Oh, to the fairness. You're fine. To the fairness point of it all, I think it's important to recognize that the public draw hunts that are within exclusive secondary units, so not hybrid units, but exclusive secondary, they do start October 1st. So this is just the, and actually on the other side of the aisle, the landowner tags that are selling in primary units, they're losing a rifle hunt like in the Gila, and they're going to have to go to muzzleloader. Nobody's upset about that. They understand the biological reason behind it, and so nobody's upset about it. So really, it was just like the hybrid thing that really was, and you heard our voice, so I really, really appreciate it. To the point that was just made about the commission has never really done anything for the public as it relates to the private land side. So I just sat through a 2-day meeting in Montana with them trying to understand why landowners don't want to participate in all of their landowner programs. Well, it's because they force public draw hunters on the private land. Landowners do not like that. You will see if you try to foist public draw hunters onto people's private deeded acreage, you will see them pull out of the program so fast. And I don't really know that much about Utah, but I can tell you, I just sat through 2 8-hour sessions in Montana where all they talked about is why don't landowners participate in their landowner programs? And I think that that's something that we do right here, and we should really be recognized for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Thomas Austin.
Commissioners, Chief Lively. I'll be real quick. I came up from Rito, so we work quite a bit in GMU 38, and the only thing that we wanted to speak of changes is you are wanting to add 10 tags to each of the rifle hunts to increase opportunity, but what we would rather see is 40 new tags in an archery hunt instead of that. And that I was one of the commenters that wanted the more opportunity into the 8. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Chris G.
I'd like to thank you for listening to all the emails that came in on the primary secondary alignment issue. That was my primary reason of coming here today. So I'd like to thank you guys for listening on that. And to the survey that we issue, one of the things I'd always wondered, Wismer added it a couple years ago where they ask if there was a wounded animal. I know it's probably not stats that you want, but it might be something to consider adding to the statistics to track, you know, where we are with wounded elk on the muzzleloader change. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Mason. Can't read the last name.
Chair, Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to comment today. My name is Mason Grau. I serve as a board member of the New Mexico Cattle Growers Association. First, I just want to recognize that elk are one of New Mexico's greatest wildlife success stories. That success has been built through a partnership among the department, hunters, private landowners, ranching families, and public land permittees. We appreciate the department's efforts to manage healthy elk herds throughout the state. I would like to briefly address two concerns and one recommendation. First, we are concerned about the proposed changes to elk hunt start dates. Many ranchers schedule gathering, shipping, weaning, pregnancy testing, and other fall cattle work around hunting seasons on their private lands. Historically, many ranchers have preferred that hunts occurred earlier in the fall because it allows hunting activity to conclude sooner and provide greater flexibility to complete livestock work before winter weather arrives. Excuse me. We ask the commission to carefully consider the impacts these dates changes may have on working ranches. Second, we encourage the commission to allow rifles during late season cow hunts in primitive weapons units. These are population management hunts designed to help the department achieve herd objectives while providing meat for New Mexico families. Allowing rifles during these late season hunts would not affect the primitive weapons experience during regular hunting seasons. It would, however, improve harvest efficiency, increase hunter success, and provide the department with another effective tool for achieving its population management objectives. Finally, although it is not part of the proposed amendments, we encourage the commission to revisit the proposed statement in the future. Elk management occurs on landscapes managed for multiple uses, including livestock grazing, watershed protection, recreation, forestry, and wildlife conservation. The proposed statement should recognize the role that private landowners, ranchers, and working landscapes play in maintaining habitat, water developments, and open space that support elk populations across New Mexico. Thank you for your time, your service, and your consideration of these comments.
Thank you, Mason. Eric, anyone online?
Mr. Chair, we have 3 people online, starting with Travis Edwards.
Go ahead, Travis.
Yeah, hello again. So on the elk, I had a couple of things. I really do appreciate the department's proposal to cut the cow tags in the Gila. However, I don't think that actually goes far enough. I would like to encourage the commission to adopt cutting all cow tags in the Gila for the next 4 years. That herd is declining. The public sees it, everybody sees it, and the department sees it as well. In the presentation, you saw that they had that herd as declining. Chief Lally has said it many times on all kind of presentations. You don't give female tags to a population that is declining. You give it when you're trying to stabilize it, keep it stable, or decrease the population. You don't give them when that population is declining. So I'm not sure why we're still giving some tags, even though we cut quite a few with the youth encouragement and the regular. I don't know why we're giving any. I think the department, I trust their biologists. I think they have a lot of good people, but it just seems like we have a history of not cutting tags fast enough on declining populations. You see that in the history of the Mount Taylor herd. Ibex comes to mind, obviously. We just kept giving tags even though the population was going down. So again, I'd urge the commission to have all cow tags be eliminated in the Gila for public and private for the next 4 years. Better to be safe than sorry. It's one of the premier elk destinations in the whole world. So if that population just continues to crash, it's not going to be good. If after 4 years the herd is increasing, you can always bring the cow tags back. Or I think Chief Lally mentioned the mid-cycle rule. You could even, if it's somehow the population starts booming, we can start giving cow tags, or even use the depredation list that every hunter, when they apply for the draw, they put their name on a list to be called if more tag, if they want to hunt an elk, we could utilize that. But I think for right now we should just cut all the cow tags in the Gila out, just to be, again, better be safe than sorry. Second thing I wanted to say is a few months ago, I've sent emails to everybody on the commission, really regarding the tags being issued via E+ versus public draw, and how the E+ lands are actually getting more tags per acre than the public draw. And that's really due to tags that are being allotted for all private land in the unit. The lands that are not enrolling in the program those tags are automatically getting rolled over into the E plus private land. So it's creating an imbalance where E plus lands are actually getting more tags than the public draw. I know you guys are very well aware that the private land system in New Mexico was controversial already. You guys hear it all the time. So really just adjusting the formula to make sure that the E plus private lands are getting the same tags per acre as the public would be great for the public and really appreciated. So thank you for your time taking my comments.
Eric,
Mr. Chair, next we have Cody.
go ahead, Cody.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Cody again. I didn't see any increases to 38 on the proposals online, but I heard that in this meeting. Is that true? Increases to rifle tags in 38 as a
Yes.
proposal?
Yes.
I would encourage that to be an archery hunt. I spend a lot of time in 38, 34, 36, and I don't think we should increase rifle tags in 38. I think that'd be a great archery opportunity, especially with how popular archery is these days. And then those burn scars, those elk just stand there in the open. We'll wipe them out with increased rifle hunts over there. And like we did with Ibex, I'd rather not to the herd in 38. That's a pretty neat little herd over there. So that would be my proposal. Just if we're going to add hunts to 38, an archery hunt would be an awesome opportunity. And then with 36 and 34, I would encourage no increase to cow hunts. Like I said, spent a lot of time there, going a lot of hunts, people's hunts. Of course, it's hard to draw over there. And in the last 10 years, I've seen the quality go down significantly. Used to be able to go in there and know you're going to kill a cow. And the last time my fiance drew a tag there, we did not fill it, and we only seen a few. And that was about a year ago. And definitely put in the work. So it's not like we're just out there road hunting. And the bull quality I've noticed has gone downhill to the age class. So I would encourage no increases there. And then again, my opinion with the statewide elk draw, not be a hunt code, but be an option to buy in. Every person could buy in one chance and increase department revenue and an additional opportunity for everybody. Could even call it the turquoise state tag, like how we got the silver state and the copper state tag. As far as the youth encouragement hunts, I think we should look at getting rid of cow hunts or even all hunts in the E plus program in the greater Gila region. Our youth, as we preach recruitment all the time, taking their hunts away doesn't really seem fair when we're trying to recruit our own residents that live here in this state, as opposed to these tags being transferable, being able to sell them out of state to rich people all over the place. They're not the ones that are living in these communities. As we know, New Mexico's population is going down, not up. And taking those opportunities away from our youth, I think, is not right, and other ways should be looked at. We're the ones out there. We're the veterans that live in this state, the law enforcement officers, the nurses, the teachers. We live here, work here, and we're part of the community. And taking tags away from
Cody,
them
Cody,
isn't
your
fair.
3 minutes is up. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, lastly, we have Lance.
Go ahead, Lance.
Good morning, commissioners and the public. I'd like to just say that, landowners do a great job as helping with the State Department manage the elk herds, and we look forward to working with the department to hopefully change the directory or the direction of the Vividal elk herd up here at Bermejo. Secondly, I know there's quite a few landowners who, if they were asked, would probably try and help support youth opportunities. People just need to ask that. We've always donated an amount of our elk authorizations to youth hunters as well as veterans groups. So people just need to ask, and rather us not point the finger so much at each other. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Lance. Chief Lively, thank you. It was a great presentation as always. We anticipate a hearing on this rule at our August meeting. So let's move on to, do we need to take a break? Are we all good? Quick break? All right, let's do 15 minutes. There were some suggestions made, one online, and I guess somebody actually made another suggestion regarding the same thing for Unit 38 and changing that to bow tags. Would you like to address that, Stuart?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, yeah, and regarding elk, absolutely. I think it's just we don't have an archery hunt in that unit. We could definitely do it. I think there's the potential to create more opportunity with archery because there's lower success. So I think the proposal from the individuals online and then in the public was to create 2 different archery hunts at 20 apiece, which would be 40 instead of our 20 rifle tags. And again, that herds in the secondary management zone, so I don't think there's an issue with that and easily could create that hunt if that was the desire of the commission to move forward with something like that.
I personally don't see anything wrong with that. That's actually provides more opportunity because it was going to be 10 tags of rifle.
10 and 10, that's correct.
10 and 10, yeah. So commissioners, you have any feelings?
I will be all in favor of that. Yes.
Yeah, my sense is the demand for archery is high, and so I'd be in favor of that as well, following the comments that we heard.
Commissioner Lopez, do you have any input? Okay, Commissioner Harwood had to leave our meeting, so he has no input either. So with that, let's direct you to change that from 20 rifle tags to 40 bow tags in Unit 38.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief Ali. Okay, agenda item number 10 is a rule hearing. Barbary sheep, Oryx, and Ibex rule 19.31.12. This hearing will please come to order. My name is Richard Stunt, Chair of the Commission. I will be serving as a hearing officer and be advised by the Commission's counsel. The purpose of this hearing is for the Commission to receive public comment on repealing and replacing Barbary sheep, Oryx, and Ibex rule, Title 19, Chapter 31, Part 12, New Mexico Administrative Code. This hearing is being conducted in accordance with the provisions of the Game and Fish Act and the State Rules Act. This hearing is being audio taped and video recorded. Anyone interested in a copy of the audio tape or video recording should contact Darren Vaughn with the Game and Fish Department. Public notice of this hearing was advertised in the New Mexico Register, the New Mexico Sunshine Portal, and on the department's website. Copies of the proposed rules have been available on the department's website. Those wishing to comment here today must have registered to submit public comments. The rule hearing will be conducted in the following manner. Staff will present pre-filed exhibits. Exhibits admitted into evidence are available for review by the public on the department's website. After all exhibits are entered, we will proceed to the presentation of the proposed rule, after which testimony will be taken from the audience. Participants are asked to wait until they are called upon to speak. In order to ensure that the hearing is accurately recorded, only one person at a time shall be allowed to speak. Any person recognized to speak is asked to identify yourself by name and who you're affiliated with for the record each time you are recognized. Speak loud and clear to accurately record your comments. After a person is offered comment, they will stand for questions from the hearing officer. The audience may also ask questions of anyone offering comments after being recognized by me. These hearings are not subject to judicial rules of evidence. However, in the interest of efficiency, I reserve the right to limit any testimony deemed irrelevant, redundant, or unduly repetitious. The Commission may discuss proposed rule after the public comment portion of the hearing. Final Commission action, including adoption of the rule, will occur after the conclusion of the presentation and public comment period of the hearing. In the preliminary matters of hearing item number 10, Barbary sheep, Oryx, and Ibex rule 19.31.12 NMAC, this hearing is now open. Are there any exhibits for the rule hearing on the Barbary sheep, Oryx, and Ibex Rule 19.31.12 NMAC for the record?
Mr. Chair, I wish to enter 6 exhibits. Exhibit number 1, the notice of the rulemaking. Exhibit 2, the proposed rule that was posted on the website. Exhibit 3, the presentation I'll be giving today. Exhibit 4, the summary of the proposed changes. Exhibit 5, the technical information we relied upon when drafting the rule. And Exhibit 6, the 85 public comments received during the rulemaking process.
Thank you, Chief Lally. 6 exhibits are admitted into the record. Whenever you're ready, Stuart.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, as you say, this is the hearing for our exotics rule. Just going to go split them up species by species. You've heard this multiple times through different aspects of the presentations. Again, on our Ibex is to try to maintain a huntable population on the Florida mountains between about 350 to 700 animals. We're definitely lower than that right now. As you'll recall, coming into this season, mid-rule cycle, we went and really capped licenses significantly. Real quick, just looking at last year's harvest data, that wasn't finalized last time you saw it. So we had a success rate of 15%, estimated harvesting 18 males total on the mountain and 4 females overall, pretty low satisfaction ratings. And that came into play when we decreased in this mid-rule cycle. Significant decreases for this current season coming up, moving the archery hunts from 100 apiece to 20 each, the muzzleloader hunt down to 0, the once-in-a-life hunt down to 5, and the female and mature hunts down to 0, and the youth tag to 1 to recognize that decrease in that population. As we kind of discussed the last few rounds, we've switched kind of some of our survey methodology and working to use kind of thermal imaging to get at that. We also just did a survey a couple weeks ago on June 5th, where we were trying to get at, and this was a helicopter, but specifically looking at if we're having juveniles being born and survived early on. So that was one of our concerns. As you remember discussions early on, we were concerned of why the decrease was happening, given we were not harvesting females at any rate that would have suggested that. So the concern was there just not juveniles being born? Were they not surviving? Again, we discussed the difficulties in putting radio collars on these, given where they live from a perspective of animal safety and human safety, just almost impossible. But we did observe 106 out of the helicopter. As you remember, our helicopter observations typically are lower than the other observations, so that's definitely a minimum. We missed some, but the encouraging is we observed 40 juveniles in that survey. So total of 106, that includes males, but a high juvenile ratio. We'll try to replicate that survey again throughout this late summer, early fall to make sure, see if we have survival rates either dipping or dropping, and that could be kind of the reasons why we're seeing it. In terms of the proposals for the Ibex, for the rule cycle, we're proposing kind of doing Ibex like we do bighorn sheep, to where we do up to numbers in rules. So we could issue on an annual basis based off survey information and population data. Now that we're down at a low level, we could issue the number of licenses up to. So basically once in a lifetime, we're saying up to 15, archery up to 40 in 2 different hunt periods, muzzleloader up to 15, youth only up to 5, and female and mature up to 40. Again, that's up to, so some of these hunts may have as few as 0, right? If the population is still tracking either stable or declining, I would imagine that up to is going to be much less than what we're proposing, no more female mature hunts, but it allows the flexibility if we see some growth and we want to try to stabilize to issue those numbers within the 4-year rule cycle. Just like the deer and the rest of the surveys, we did that hunter survey early on. Most people really is the unique experience is the primary reason why they put in for Ibex. Just the opportunity to hunt them. The dissatisfaction is pretty high right now. I think it's due to the population density is mainly the main thing, and also because the mature billy numbers are low. The main objective of hunters in here was to basically see mature billy presence on the mountain is the main driving factor of why they want to draw that tag. Moving on to Barbary sheep, our goal is to maintain huntable populations in the southeast and then minimize expansion of that population outside of the southeast. That's why we have over-the-counter license sales outside of the southeast. Real quick, just looking at the 2025 harvest data that wasn't available the last time you saw that, but roughly 3,600 Barbary sheep hunters across the state at 38% success rate, harvesting 652 estimated males and 333 females. Fairly high satisfaction rating, as you see there, at 3.7 overall in the hunts. The proposed recommendations for Barbary sheep is requiring ranch registration for the private land over-the-counter tags in those GMUs where we have draw tags. We also, as we mentioned previous, is splitting GMUs 29 and 30 out into individual hunts. Currently, it's a combined 29 or 30 draw hunt. No change in license numbers, but just adjusting the licenses based on proportion of where we have animals. And then the bigger one is with McGregor Range, increasing their either sex hunts from 10 to 20, and then increasing the female immature hunts from 130 to 150, spread over a 1-month hunt period. Right now, it's just a weekend. This would we would have to work with the military on non-mission days. So even though it's a month-long hunt period, it probably is just going to be limited to weekends, but it'd be multiple weekends within the month on non-mission days on McGregor Range. In terms of the hunter surveys on Barbary sheep, just the experience to draw on the unique opportunity again is the main driving factor there. Most of it was highly satisfied with it, but the ones that did discuss dissatisfaction was more on low density and low mature rams. And there was no real clear public consensus over the counter versus draw structure. We were trying to get at, do people prefer just more of an over the counter experience versus draw, to kind of get at that. Again, it was more neutrality in that, both sides kind of divided on that. And then Oryx, our management direction is kind of maintain huntable populations in GMU 19. That's really White Sands Missile Range's vast majority of GMU 19, and then continue to have over-the-counter, off-range month-long hunts, kind of to limit expansion of Oryx herds. Out there, again, 2025 harvest and license data is there. High success rates still on White Sands Missile Range, about 80%. Success rates off range are still very high at 58%, and you'll see harvest there almost a little closer to parity between males and females on that, with a high satisfaction rating of 4.2. Population status, we think range-wide across White Sands Missile Range, about 3,000 to 3,500, with the vast majority of those being on Stallion and Rhodes Canyon Range is the majority of those animals. And then animals on off the range make up the rest, including Fort Bliss. So our recommendations on Oryx is, like the other species, have a ranch registration for the private land over the counter, maintain our license numbers, really virtually no changes in license numbers on White Sands and Fort Bliss, and increase our off-range licenses by 5%. We originally came back with a higher proposal, and then we kind of reduced that at the second subsequent based off public comments. So you'll see that in a second in the public comments when we came back, but it's an overall 5% increase in the off-range hunts, and then just adjusting dates to deal with military missions. And then the other big one we heard was shifting that 70+ limited only hunt to Oryx to make it more of a draw for anybody. And that we did that in the proposed changes. And just a definition clarification on what a broken horn Oryx is. It doesn't change what we feel like can be hunted on a broken horn. It's just a clarification on that definition. In terms of the surveys, meat is the #1 driving factor for Oryx hunters, and less concerned about horn size, with a strong satisfaction for Oryx hunting, showing over 66% of the hunters that draw a license. This is both on range and off range, are highly satisfied with their hunts. And the dissatisfaction is more on the low Oryx density, again, not as much. We did hold 2 public virtual in-person meetings in Albuquerque and Las Cruces with 40 people in attendance. And as I mentioned at the start of the rule hearing, we had 85 comments submitted to the official record on this rule development. In terms of the comments, we had more support than opposition on the ranch registration and Oryx. We had a lot of opposition early on to the increase. Again, that was where we moved that to 5% and we started having more support. So when we first came out, we didn't have the percent increase on our summary proposed changes, and we just had general opposition to it. Since we came out with the 5%, we haven't had that opposition is not driven as much. And then on Barbary sheep, we had support on the splitting GMUs 29 and 30, and Ibex was our most comments with pretty broad support in how we did our license reductions and also in support of how we're structuring it similar to bighorn sheep. We did receive some opposition to license reductions and some comments that suggested that we eliminate the herd as well too. So a little bit of varying comments. And then just in general, 16 other comments that really did not pertain to the management or were other things that talked about predator control, et cetera, that were kind of outside the scope of this rulemaking. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Commissioners?
I don't have questions, but I have a comment. Thank you. Well, more of a thank you comment is thank you for listening to the public. I really appreciate it. You has been taking into consideration all the comments and adjusting accordingly to the public's comment. Thank you.
Commissioner Witt.
Yes, Chief Liley, great presentation again. And yeah, that was mostly review for us, but I like that new data from June 5th that you shared from the helicopter survey. But I wanted to clarify, is 106 individuals, did that include the 40 juveniles or was that in addition?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner White, included the 40 juveniles.
Okay, it looks like we have a couple from the audience. Brandon. You pass. David Heft.
Chair, Commissioners, David Heft, Bay Hill. I'll be brief since you pretty much know my opinion about the exotics. I love hunting them just like everybody else, but as a biologist, I can't support them on the landscape. Right now, whatever the reasons for it, whatever you believe, we're in long-term climate change. Southern half of the state where all these exotics are found, we're in long-term drought. Our native wildlife is under tremendous stress in the habitats that they depend on. And these exotic species here that we have out there simply to run a Texas-style game ranch operation are another stressor on the landscape and something that we've created. So, and quite frankly, the current research and scientific research does not support having these out there, just the opposite. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Is there anybody online?
Mr. Chair, there is one. Cody.
Go ahead, Cody.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Cody again. Thanks for having me. As far as the 29-30 split on Barbary, I think that's good. I think that'll help some people draw the hunts they actually want instead of lumping those two together, of course. Again, I'll speak on ranch registration. That's gonna put people getting permission last minute in a bind as far as the ranch not being registered or hunted or anything like that. And then as far as getting rid of the 70-plus-year-old hunt for Oryx, I think that's a good move. And then again with the Ibex, I know it's a controversial topic. I'm actually from Deming, born and raised, and I've been watching them over the years. It's quite the sight to see when they're doing well. If you guys could just do everything you possibly can to keep that hunting opportunity there. The vast majority of people like that opportunity. It's unique. And we don't want to see that go anywhere, of course. And predator control, I think, would be a good idea over there. I can't go on a hike up there without finding a lion kill. So that might be something to look into up there. And that's all I got. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Cody. Anybody else, Eric?
Mr. Chair, that is everyone.
Okay.
I did it well during the break.
Okay. I don't have the cards. Just give me a sec. Jonathan Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I'm Jonathan Schmidt from Kirtland, New Mexico. I'm a faculty here at ENMU, and so I just want to clarify that this is my personal opinion, and I'm not representing ENMU or the state of New Mexico or whatever, but I just want to echo, and I'll keep it brief, the comments that were previously made regarding these exotic species, and I vehemently disagree with the department managing exotic species. And I think the department should be taking the opposite approach and for the benefit of the native wildlife of the state, ridding these exotic species from our state. And you could add to this Eurasian collared dove as well. So anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Jonathan. Chris.
Thank you, guys. So my comment on this is I am in favor of all these registrations for the various hunting ranches, elk, deer, oryx, or, ibex, everything. I think one of the things that should be considered by the department is having the ability to register a ranch with the department so that E+ and the mule deer and the oryx and the Barbary sheep all can communicate in one deal. Because like right now, I'm trying to deal with getting mule deer ranches registered for special projects that are registered with the E+, but they can't get the information from the E+ because they're too busy. So I'm trying to get, in some of these cases, 80-year-old ranchers running down there with old blueprints of their properties or hand-drawn maps, whatever they come up with. If we could get a deal where we could get these people to be, or myself included as a landowner, to register my ranch a single time, that the entire department had access to it. That way, if I'm registered for elk, I can have Barbary, Oryx, because some of our properties have all of them. I'm gonna have to deal with this with 4 different deals. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Is that a manner and method thing?
Mr. Chair, it's internal IT thing, and we're actually working on that process right now. So we met with our field operations, and our wildlife management division met with our information division a couple weeks ago to discuss the process for the registration, because we're going to have to create that in the system. And that was the exact thing that we're trying to do, is make it so they speak across. And when one person comes in to register, they could register for pronghorn, elk, deer, any species that they might have at that same time. They'll probably receive different authorization. They'll receive different ranch codes for each one of those when they draw, but it will be a one kind of shop is what we're trying to deal with on a registration process.
Okay, thank you, Chief Lally. Those that registered and participated in the hearing will be included on the attendance sheet. At this time, the attendance sheet shall be marked and admitted as exhibit number 7. The comments submitted and testimony heard during this rule hearing will be reviewed by the commission and discussed during the open session of today's meeting. The commission will vote on the proposed rule at that time. I'd like to thank everyone present for their participation today. Let the record show that this rulemaking hearing was adjourned at 11:59 a.m. Commissioners, any more discussion? Is there a motion?
I so move.
Can we just move it like that, or do you have to?
Do we need the description?
Mr.
I so move
I
to
can read it for you.
review and replace 19.31.12 NMAC as presented by the department, and allow the department to make minor corrections to comply with filings this rule with the state record and archives.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item number 11 is another rule hearing, Migratory Bird Rule 19.31.6 NMAC. Give 1 second here. Let me catch up. Yeah, you want a break for lunch? He doesn't? Yeah, he's sitting in the seat. Okay, let's just go. This hearing will please come to order. My name is Richard Stunt, Chair of the Commission. I will be serving as a hearing officer and be advised by the Commission's counsel. Purpose of this hearing is for the Commission to receive public comment on repealing and replacing the Migratory Bird Rule, Title 19, Chapter 31, Part 6, New Mexico Administrative Code. This hearing is being conducted in accordance with the provisions of the Game and Fish Act and the State Rules Act. This hearing is being audio taped and video recorded. Anyone interested in a copy of the audio tape or video recording should contact Darren Vaughn with the Game and Fish Department. Public notice of this hearing is advertised in the New Mexico Register and the New Mexico Sunshine Portal and on the department's website. Copies of the proposed rules have been available on the department's website. Those wishing to comment here today must have registered to submit public comments. The rule hearing will be conducted in the following manner. Staff will present pre-filed exhibits. Exhibits admitted into evidence are available for review by the public on the department's website. After all exhibits are entered, we will proceed to the presentation of the proposed rule, after which testimony will be taken from the audience. Participants are asked to wait until they are called upon to speak. In order to ensure that the hearing is accurately recorded, only one person at a time shall be allowed to speak. Any person recognized to speak is asked to identify yourself by name and who you're affiliated with for the record each time you're recognized. Speak loud and clear to accurately record your comments. After a person is offered comment, they will stand for questions from the hearing officer. The audience may also ask questions of anyone offering comments after being recognized by me. These hearings are not subject to judicial rules of evidence. However, in the interest of efficiency, I reserve the right to limit any testimony deemed irrelevant, redundant, or unduly repetitious. The Commission may discuss the proposed new rule after the public comment portion of the hearing. Final Commission action, including adoption of the rule, will occur after the conclusion of the presentation of the public comment period of the hearing. In the preliminary matters of hearing item number 11, Migratory Bird Rule 19.31.6 NMAC. This hearing is now open. Are there any exhibits for the rule hearing on the Migratory Bird Rule 19.31.6 NMAC for the record?
Mr. Chair, I wish to enter 6 exhibits. Exhibit 1, the notice of the rulemaking. Exhibit 2, the proposed rule that was posted on our website. Exhibit 3, the presentation that I'll be giving today. Exhibit 4, the summary of the proposed changes. Exhibit 5, the technical information we relied upon when drafting the rule. And Exhibit 6, the 7 public comments we received during the rulemaking process.
6 exhibits are admitted into the record. Stuart, please introduce the proposed Migratory Bird Rule.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, as you know, this is an annual rule working in cooperation with the federal government and Fish and Wildlife Service. I would like to note that this year with the federal government, it's a little bit different. They did not do a proposed rule. They went proposed to final. First time they've done that ever. It was just released, I think, from OMB today. So basically the rule, what will happen is it's going to go for a 60-day public comment with a final at the end of the 60 days. So normally they would do a proposed rule in January, February, take comments, do a final rule about now, and then close it in there. But they're doing a proposed to final because they didn't do a proposed rule before. So luckily they got the proposed to final issued this week, or else we potentially would have had to roll back to the previous year's regulations is what we were looking like, and we wouldn't have been able to do any adjustments. But the proposed to final did go out recently. So with that, we are just looking at some adjustments to bag and possession limits. If they concur with the frameworks, we looked at the frameworks and nothing will change. In terms of our general harvest structure and seasons for our migratory birds, the one things that we do have some control over is our Rocky Mountain population of sandhill cranes. We get an allocation every year. Our allocation has increased again. We are proposing creating 18 new draw hunts for our southwest draw area. So that's kind of that Las Cruces down in the Boot Hill draw area for RMPs. We didn't increase the ones along the Middle Rio Grande, partly because of just a hunter density issue that we were concerned about, that we're going to get at a place. We're already hearing from some of the hunters that there is a little bit of concern that we have too many hunters at one period of time. So I think we did see some potential growth along the southwest. The other thing that we proposed changing was moving the Estancia Valley hunt later in the season when we get more cranes. It used to be earlier because the concern was that the harvest would be more on RMP cranes and not mid-continent cranes. Given that we have a larger allocation on our Rocky Mountain population cranes and that we are not seeing many RMPs even later, we feel comfortable with shifting that hunt to the later period in the Estancia Valley. We had 7 public comments, as I mentioned, received to the rule, held 2 public meetings, hybrid, 11 people online, 9 in person. Some of this comments were outside the allowances in the federal frameworks, like hunting after January 31st or more exposure days than were allowed. That additional hunting request was just that. We just don't have the capabilities to hunt above what is allowed by the Migratory Bird Treaty Act and what Congress sets for exposure dates. Some people asking for a reduction in season length. I think part of that was this last year we were warm across the whole central flyway and birds just didn't come as far south as they historically have. So there's concern about just not as many birds. But I think that's we'll see if this trend continues, but I think that was a function of weather more than anything on the migrating patterns. Again, the Estancia Valley hunt I just mentioned. One comment that came in kind of frequently, and we'll work with the Fish and Wildlife Service over the next year. We have a special Middle Rio Grande dark goose season for Canada geese that's limiting in there. Dark geese, Canada geese are doing well across the whole continent. I don't think we need to have a limited hunt in there. I think it could follow the normal seasons. It's a set aside that we do ourselves. So we're proposing eliminating that dark goose season in there. And then some of the comments on duck hunt changes on youth applications. They're kind of requesting more of an application process for trying to get blinds on some of our WMAs. I think that's something we could do outside the rule and look at maybe a registration for especially the quagmire. It really is dependent on water and the amount of water that we get. So this year's not unless we get a really great monsoon season. I don't know how much water we're going to get on some of those pondings in the Bernardo area for including filling up the quagmire, which takes a lot of water in the last to fill. And then one last comment on an elimination of the band-tailed pigeon season. Some concerns, definitely population has decreased. Our band-tailed population harvest is very low in this state. We're tracking it. We've actually reduced season lengths and dates through time, including at the federal level, and we are tracking that. One of the things that we do and we put in place about 8 years ago was in order to hunt band-tailed pigeons in the state, you have to pre-register with us prior to, so we could actually go out to those hunters and survey directly to figure out what harvest was. So in terms of a concern on eliminating, we really don't feel like that's necessary at this point, but we are tracking harvest on band-tails as well. Just real briefly, those are the snapshots of the Central Flyway proposed season dates. That aligns with the federal framework that's going proposed to final right now, and then on our Pacific Flyway as well. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Chief Liley. We don't seem to have any public comment. Is there anyone online? No. No, okay, thank you. Commissioners, do you have anything to say? No.
Yeah, I want to get some clarifications on this. Are we going to eliminate the MRGV special dark goose limit? I don't. You're saying we're looking into it, or
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Witt, it's really a short season, right? So it's not, the bag limits will stay, we'll go back to what's allowable across the whole Central Flyway in our tier zone. And so right now the limit and the time frame is smaller. So we're proposing just eliminating that carve out for MRGCD for dark geese and that's a self-imposed, it's not a federal imposed. It was a self-imposed to shorten season and bag limit on MRGCD
LED dark geese.
So what's the change is going to be? It's going to go back to the whole season starting mid-October?
Mr. Chair,
But it'll go up to 5?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Witt, it'd follow the rest of the flyway.
Okay. Okay, good. But that's not reflected in the current, like the commission book that we got has highlights the changes that are proposed, but it doesn't include that change.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Witt, what we'd have to do, because we didn't get that comment in and analyze in time to get it through the federal frameworks, at this year's Central Flyway meetings, we were going to propose that to the federal government to remove that restriction in the federal frameworks as well. And so we'll work with the federal government for the 2027 season to
Okay.
remove that restriction within. So we took that comment. Again, we couldn't do it for this season. Federal frameworks
Okay.
are already being developed. And we'll set it at the Central Flyway meeting. We'll propose that Central Flyway. We'll take that to Service Regulation Committee meeting in October-ish. And I don't think the service will have any concerns about us removing that restriction because it's self-imposed restriction.
Okay, good. Now, can you help me clarify what another aspect of this proposed changes that was provided in the commission book for dark geese, also for the Central Flyway? It says dark goose : regular season closed in Sierra, Socorro, and Valencia counties. Can you explain that?
Mr. Chair, that's the MRGC. That's our Middle Rio Grande population. We refer to it here from a Middle Rio Grande population, but the counties is how the federal
Oh, I
government
see.
refers
Okay.
to it.
Okay. Maybe you could use some more punctuation in there to understand that that's like a carve out. Also, does that not include Bernalillo County?
It is, I believe, portions of Bernalillo as well.
Okay, that should be added then too. So we could be a little more clear on that. One other question, on the Pacific Flyway, we have, for under geese, we have a limit of 10 white-fronted geese. Does anyone ever get white-fronted geese in the Pacific Flyway in New Mexico?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Witt, no, we've, from our wing survey data, we haven't seen that. And I don't think we get many white fronts coming through New Mexico in general. We just follow the rest of the frameworks for the Pacific Flyway.
Okay. But the rarer geese in the Central Flyway, like white-fronted and brant, which do occur, they would be included under dark geese and they would be huntable, right, in the Central Flyway?
Mr. Chair, that's correct. They are considered a dark geese.
Okay, I don't have any more questions. Thank you, Chief Liley.
Commissioner Witt, thank you. I guess there's no more discussion with commission. Those that registered and participated in the hearing will be included on the attendance sheet. At this time, the attendance sheet shall be marked and admitted as exhibit number
7.
Last one was 7. Both 7. Comments submitted and testimony heard during this rule hearing will be reviewed by the commission and discussed during the open session of today's meeting. The commission will vote on the proposed rule at that time. I would like to thank everyone present for their participation today. Let the record show that this rulemaking hearing was adjourned at 12:12 p.m. Commissioners, is there a motion?
Sure, I'd like to make a motion. I move to repeal and replace 19.31.6 NMAC as presented by the department and allow the department to make minor corrections to comply with filing this rule with state records and archives.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Discussion on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Chief Liley. Great presentation as usual. Do we want to break for lunch? Yeah.
Have a working lunch.
10 minutes? Let's go. Okay, let's hold on for lunch. Agenda item number 12 is approval of the infrastructure capital improvement plan presented by Chief Varela.
All right, agenda item number 12 is approval, the department is seeking approval of the 2028 to 2032 capital improvement plan. So the infrastructure and capital improvement plan must be submitted to the Capital Outlay Bureau by July 1st, 2026. Once it is, that's a statutory requirement. Please keep in mind that it is separate from our operating budget request, which will be presented in August. Once it's submitted in July, it is heard in front of a capital outlay committee in October, which is comprised of members from the executive branch and from the legislative branch. They then make recommendations to the legislature, which ultimately makes the final decision on capital outlay plans for each agency. It's important to focus on fiscal year 28, which is the next current year, which we will be presenting for capital improvement, because the legislature only approves it 1 year at a time. The subsequent 4 years after that can change, and they are just anticipated projects which are dependent on available funding at the time. And if capital plans are approved, they are good for 4 years. So in fiscal year 2028, we're requesting, there's 4 projects in this presentation, but we would like to request 3. The first project is our wildlife habitat restoration and management projects. These are mostly for to prevent catastrophic wildfires, improve watershed health, and the operation of state commission-owned game properties. So that the first project has $2.5 million, which is used from the Sykes Act fund. But the department would like to combine projects number 1 and projects number 3. For this presentation, we broke it out into 2 different projects. So project number 3 is for dam improvements to Bear Canyon Dam and to Eagle Nest Dam. The department will be requesting $25 million from the general fund to support these projects, and it's to comply with regulatory requirements from the Office of the State Engineer. So then the second project is for $10 million to improve the Santa Fe building headquarters. This would be to add additional square footage for staff and to also add a commission meeting room. And then the third project, once we combine projects 1 and 3, is for $2.5 million for hatchery improvements, which includes bond interest and retirement fund money and game protection fund money. So for fiscal year 2028, the total amount requested is $40 million. And $25 million of that is for state general fund, which is the most important, which is the largest request. So for fiscal year 2029, the department has 3 project requests. The first is, again, wildlife habitat restoration and improvement management projects, which is also to prevent catastrophic wildfires, improve watershed health, and for the operation of state game commission-owned properties. The second project we would like to request is $2 million from the Game Protection Fund for hatchery improvements. These would be utilized on all hatcheries wherever necessary. And project number 3 is $500,000 from the OHV Fund for off-highway vehicle recreation development and improvement projects for a total of $9 million. In fiscal year 30, the department again will, the priority number 1 is wildlife habitat and restoration management projects, which is another $2 million from the Sykes Act fund. Priority number 2 is hatchery improvements. But in fiscal year 30, we will be requesting $10 million from the Game Protection Fund. This is specifically for renovations at Los Ojos Hatchery and Lisboa Springs Hatchery, and another $500 from the Bond Interest and Retirement Fund. The total request in fiscal year 30 is $12.5 million. In fiscal year 31, the department again will be requesting $4.5 million, $2.5 million from the Big Game Enhancement Fund and $2 million from the Sykes Act Fund for wildlife habitat restoration and management projects, again for catastrophic wildfires and watershed improvement health. In fiscal year 32, the department will also be requesting $2 million for wildlife habitat and restoration management projects from the Sykes Act Fund. It's basically the same as before. And then the second priority would be $500,000 from the Bond Interest and Retirement Fund. And with that, I stand for any questions.
Commissioners? Commissioner Lopez.
Chief Adler, thank you for the presentation. I have a question. Maybe Kirk can come up as well. Has the department looked at fixing the dams? I believe we own them in the Carson National Forest for a couple of the recreation areas, the Nutras Lakes and the Cajilon Lakes.
Commissioner Stump, or Chairman Stump, Commissioner, we have not specifically had any plans to restore any of those dams, but a lot of our dams are high hazard dams, according to the Office of the State Engineer. And perhaps Kirk could provide more detail.
Yes, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Lopez. We've had early conversations with Carson National Forest about two dams in particular, the Trout Lakes, Nutrius Lakes Dam, as well as Conhilone Lakes. Originally, we had devised a couple small fixes for Conhilone Lakes, got into some of the compliance conversations and engineering requirements, and that stalled. The Trout Lakes fix is a much longer sort of consideration that we're in discussions with them on.
So is it still possible to maybe allocate some capital outlay funding in this process? I know it's not the 11th hour, but at least add it into one of these plans somewhere.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Lopez, I think they could potentially receive some of the Sykes Act money if a project was submitted, but I don't think we're far enough along in the engineering design compliance conversation with the Forest Service for that to happen. But certainly when it does, they would be eligible for that kind of funding if the Citizen Advisory Committee chose to go that route.
Well, I would urge, thank you, Director, I would urge the department and staff if they could expedite some of these conversations. I do know that the wheels of government do turn slow, and we have a lot of projects going around statewide, a lot of great projects, by the way. But this is a big, high recreation area for northern New Mexico. And of course, if we can work with the Forest Service to, have these conversations, possibly get them going in the next year or so, would be great. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Lopez. Commissioner Wilson, please.
So I wanted to ask, first of all, I'm really happy to see the money for wildlife habitat restoration and management projects in here. Although I noticed it's a little uneven among years, and the funding for hatchery improvements is really, really badly needed, and those upgrades will be really important. Not for the Department for Fisheries, obviously, but also for the public image of the department, since those are really frequently visited and great facilities for school groups and things like that. But I wanted to ask specifically about the headquarters expansion. We're proposing this meeting room for public meetings will be up to 250 people in capacity, which would be great for the commission meetings, I guess. But will that just sit unused for between meetings, or what's the thinking there?
Chairman Stump, Commissioner Witt, I think if it had various use purposes, we could use it for commission meetings as well as other regional meetings for our other divisions. Sometimes we have regional meetings for law enforcement, also for fisheries. So we could potentially use that for that, as well as any other meetings that the director might approve.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, yeah, that's correct. It's designed to be a multi-use room, so it's not theater style or anything. So we'll have I'm sure it'll get a great deal of use, both from our agency and potentially from some others.
Okay, well, if there's demand for that, I understand the need for it, but the appearance of having $10 million for the headquarters improvements, but only $2.5 million for wildlife habitat restoration and management throughout the state it feels a little out of balance, and I noticed that in fiscal year 25, we have 6.5 million targeted for wildlife habitat and restoration. So clearly we can spend a lot more on that. And, it's just a little bit regrettable that we're spending 4 times more on our headquarters than we are on wildlife management throughout the state.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Witt, I think there are a couple of reasons for that. One is we are stacking people on top of each other at the moment in our current building, thankfully, because we got grow money and land of enchantment funding. So we do need the space. The second piece of that is the funds that are drawing the 6.5 number you mentioned are dedicated funds for specific purposes. We need to allow those balances to grow to be able to take the bigger chunks out. Our strategy has been along the way to take, as you can see, every other year from Sykes Act, for example. But that chunk aligned with multiple big game enhancement, Sykes Act and something else so that it was a larger number. And part of the reason we've had to spread these costs out is because we just got the fee increase. So the game protection fund is hopefully going to rise and we'll be able to take bigger chunks as time permits. But we kind of felt like the priority at the moment was getting some space at the office, both for the commission and for our employees to have a decent workspace to go do the great work that they do.
Thanks for the answer, Director Sloan. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Commissioner Witt. And where did Commissioner Clemente go to? We might have to pause.
Mr. Chairman, because it's not a rulemaking, if you're ready to vote, you could vote as long as you get 3 affirmative votes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Director Sloan. Is there a motion?
Yes, I move to approve the FY 28 to FY 32 capital plan as presented by the department.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 No opposed. Motion passes. Thank you, Paul. Agenda item number 13 is our second general public comment period. Start with Brandon.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioners. So I just want to make an observation of kind of how things went down today. So the public has been coming to the commission for decades, basically, saying, please reform private tags. And the commission keeps its heels dug in and just won't do it and won't listen to the public. And so private tags are an enormous special privilege for wealthy hunters and wealthy landowners that in New Mexico that it doesn't exist in any Western state at scale or method and means. It just doesn't, right? That's just a fact. And so the public, you know, I mean, I've stood up here and complained about it 1,000 times, maybe, I don't know. And you see, as time goes by, there's more and more people are offline or online complaining and just saying things. And we don't get a response from the commission as far as any action. We don't even get, I can't remember a commissioner defending it, like saying, yeah, the reason we're not listening to you is this is why we think we have good policy and that it's fair and that we're being good public trustees in doing this. So today we get to, so the special management zone for elk is a super special privilege. It's unlimited, landowners can do it, and they have months of season. And so, you know, the private hunting industry rallies a bunch of comments and the commission unanimously, I believe today, just like, okay, yeah, this is what the private side of the equation wants. We will listen to this. You made 1 or 2 tinkers on the entire proposal for the elk all the way through the process. And it was to make that privilege extra special. And so it is extra special. So what it does is you're saying that if you're a public hunter, if you're a New Mexican, right? If you're 99% of New Mexicans who you draw or you starve, you better know where you want to hunt in March when you apply. And by April, when the results come out, that's the end of the line for you. So your hunting season, your year for your family is set in April and it's cast in stone. There's not much way around it, right? Because we can't afford these private tags. But if I'm, you know, a wealthy guy and I live in, I don't know, Columbus, Ohio, and I'm sitting around in November, I say, man, I sure would like to go kill a big elk. And the secondary management zone has become this low key, the ultimate giant bull hunt. And so you just let them sign up in November. Hey, I want to go hunting next week, and here they come. It's unfair.
Thank you, Rana. Jonathan Schmidt.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson and commissioners. Jonathan Schmidt from Kirtland, New Mexico, and I'll just for the record clarify again that I'm not here in my capacity as a faculty member here at UNMU, as just a citizen of the state and born and raised New Mexican. And I wanted to add to what I said earlier and say that I also have a tremendous respect for the department. My father worked his whole entire career for the department. And so I do appreciate what you guys do. But I have a couple of, I guess, more like sort of questions, but I wanted to start off commending the department for the name change, although I guess it would be nice if it were reflected on the some of the branding. But in light of this change, one of my comments or questions is regarding, I guess this is the more general question, but what the department's plan or vision is for using funds to help the conservation of non-game wildlife in this state. And I think that's something that I think the rest of the public would also be interested in knowing or having a better idea of like what the vision is for those funds. And my second question is sort of more specific and related to our setting here in Roosevelt County regarding the federal government's removal of the lesser prairie chicken from the endangered species list, and what the department's vision or plan is for conserving that species in the state with what I assume will be without the support of the federal government going forward.
Thank you, Jonathan. Chris Ukema.
Chris Geikema, and resident landowner, hunter, sportsman, whatever. So I'd like to thank you for listening today. I would like to also point out that residents have every opportunity to buy every single tag in the state. Secondary management zone, primary management zone, all the E+ tags, all the secondary stuff. You as residents can come to me at any time and purchase tags to hunt. So the fact that they're not available, they are available. And then one of my other comments was, what New Mexico private land, cattlemen, and everything else bring to the state. We're an arid, dry state. I'd like to point out that in some of the lands that we manage that benefit wildlife for the state, we just finished an $800,000 mechanical thinning project. We're following that up with 4 years of chemical thinning. One of our primary ranches went from 190 AU or animal units, cow-calf pairs, to 20. And they're doing that to support the wildlife. We're coming in, we're moving cattle off of areas that are primarily for calving zones so we can protect them in the fall when that grass is all grown in and is heavy and is there. We are keeping that stuff protected. In the last 6 years, we've rebuilt and redesigned 30 dirt tanks. We have over $150,000 invested in dirt work and labor and man hours. In the last 2 years, we moved 40,000 feet of net wire fencing. We went back through and reinstalled, to date, 30,000 feet of wildlife friendly according to the department's requirements of 18-inch slick wire on the bottom, 40-inch height on the stuff. So the private landowners and the people that provide the tags and participate in these programs, we're not just taking, we are also giving back. So, we're here to help wildlife, not just take. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Carrie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Carrie Romero on behalf of the New Mexico Council of Outfitters and Guides. This is a little bit preaching to the choir, but I think it needs to be stated more for the public record than anything else. New Mexico residents have access to all except for 6% of the tags in the state of New Mexico. They have 100% of the draw cow elk tags, 100% of the wildlife management tags, 84% of the public land draw tags, and the outfitter pool is resident or non-resident. Additionally, all landowner tags, regardless of species, are equal opportunity. Residents have access to those tags. They have more opportunity, I would argue, than any other Western state. And I think it also gets lost a lot of times that the private land elk tags through E+, they are allocated authorizations to the private landowners. And we hear so often, oh, these are just rich non-residents. No, the vast majority of these landowners are New Mexico residents. So these E+ tags are being allocated, and those landowners, yes, those tags are transferable, but those landowners, they can utilize those tags if they want. They can give them to their grandson, they could give it to a charity, or they can sell them to recuperate some of the cost that they've put into providing wildlife habitat. And New Mexico is a very arid and dry state, and we get compared to a lot of different states all the time where the habitat is vastly different. New Mexico actually has very good quality, wildlife quality for the amount of water that we have, and I don't think that can be overlooked. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Kurt Kennedy.
Gary kind of stole my thunder for most of it. But anyway, for your wildlife that belong to everybody, right? They don't belong to the state, they're managing them. If the private land decided to say, come on and take all of your wildlife and put it on the public land, how would that work? They're private landowners. And we're helping manage both. As for Brandon, my question is how do the rules work anymore? I haven't been for a long time. I pretty much, like I say, I've been in it for 48 years in the hunting business. Rancher all my life, several generations. And when I started out, we got asked for a comment. They appreciated our comment, the people that are living on the ground and working with the wildlife as an outfitter and the ranchers. And I argued with my dad a lot because the ranchers say that wildlife, all they are is a detriment of their resources, their grass, their habitat, their water, tear up their fences. But when we started doing this, we would get them help with you guys or with Stuart with the rule. And I came here upset and I got to see where you've done a lot of research in a lot of areas, but I think that northeast corner has been the whipping board for a lot of it. We got our antelope herd, the best antelope herd in the state, the largest. It's decimated. And it's not all by what you guys did, but part of it was. And now with the deer deal coming up, I agree wholeheartedly with having some accountability to the ranchers, because not all of them are like me, I promise you. That's part of what happened to the animal. But when it comes to fairness, we can't do, if we're going to cut or go back or keep it the same, let's start managing with strictly biology, not on permit numbers or what Brandon wants or what I want. Let's go with what the animals need. And that's what I look at, and I don't see that it's being done in all cases. And so my question is how can I have more input? Because I don't email. I'm an old man that doesn't do that, and I refuse to. So how do I go about having more input? it's too late now this time, but in the future, where do I come up with more input?
Thank you, Kirk. If you're not going to email, you probably need to go to meetings. Brooke.
Thank you, Chairman Stump and members of the commission. My name is Brooke Woodmansee. I'm a natural resources management student at UNM Taos, and I'm currently working as an intern with Western Landowners Alliance. We would like to take this opportunity to appreciate the department and commissioners for their consideration of private landowner stewardship of wildlife habitat during this rulemaking cycle. We value the previous and current efforts put forth by the Commission to enforce biological management strategies in equitable respect to our rural and agricultural communities. And we stand in support of future policies that will promote the abilities of landowners to continue their invaluable contribution to maintaining nearly half of our state's wildlife habitat. As New Mexico continues to experience drought severity and wildfire risk, we would like to emphasize the importance of private lands that provide water resources, refuge, and connectivity. As natural water sources and vegetation are stressed during this time, there is a need for continued balanced wildlife management on both private and public lands. The labor and cost attributed to supporting wildlife on working lands is susceptible to increase as environmental conditions become poor. Acknowledging the historical and current efforts of landowners in sustaining wildlife populations, we ask the Commission to foster sincere consideration of landowner equity and support as our state navigates future wildlife management under environmental duress. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brooke. Eric, is anyone online?
Mr. Chair, oh, sorry about that. There are two people online. The first is Travis.
Go ahead, Travis.
Hi, hello, Dan. Hello, Dan. Yeah, a couple quick things back to elk. First, I wanted to thank the department for adding public tags to Unit 32. I've been asking for it for quite a while. We've been down there deer hunting and Barbary hunting. It's been amazing how many elk have been in that desert country. So happy that they're adding those tags. I would ask though, there's two hunts of two of either sex. The first one starts October 1st, which I think is good, is great. It matches, the private land. The second one is, I think, starts mid-October. I would ask the department and the commission to see if you could move that to like later in the year, like December. That country down there is most probably letting you know is rocky and a lot of hiking, and when temperatures in mid-October are still 80 degrees sometimes or even higher, it'd be really tough to pack out an elk. So it'd be great on that second hunt if we could just move that till December, so have some cooler weather. Second thing I wanted to comment on is echoing a little bit of what Brandon had said earlier. The E+ system or private land system, it's very controversial with the public of the state, and there's been complaining about it for quite a long time. I'm sympathetic to both sides as a public hunter myself. I see a lot of the arguments on the public side, but I recognize a lot of the stuff the private does for wildlife. So I think that I think there definitely needs to be a balance there, and I'm not opposed to E+ overall. One thing it does, and I want to echo is, the public has been complaining about E+ for a long time, unit-wide tags, all kinds of things, and the commission's been pretty much silent on most of those. Yet this year, the department makes one change proposes one change for somewhat fairness in the secondary and primary where it's a hybrid unit. It just make more fairness is a hunter draws a tag it starts October 10th, and the same unit, the private's already been hunting at October 1st starting. So they said, well, let's just align that and make that more fair. That's one of the changes we haven't, that's been towards the public on the elk system in the last several rule cycles. Yet that one change, we get a bunch of comments organized by a group, and the commission just automatically reverses that. So it's disappointing to see that when you get organized from that side, that they cave to any department recommendation that benefits the public. They cave to it. So it's just kind of disappointing to see. Thank you for taking my comments.
Thank you, Travis. Anybody else?
Mr. Chair, there's one more. Dan?
Go ahead, Dan.
Good morning. Good afternoon, commissioners. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak. For the record, Dan Roper with Trout Unlimited. I'd like to offer a brief and largely supportive comment of the department's ICIP request that you just approved as it pertains to investments in our fish hatcheries. The most recent numbers I've seen from 2024 estimate that existing infrastructure and capital improvement needs for the department's 6 state-run fish hatcheries are close to $30 million. I would guess that today the actual funding needs are even higher. That same report puts the annual number of angler days in New Mexico at over 4 million, and I believe that annual fishing license sales continue to exceed 200,000 every year. The department also estimates that most of those angling days are spent on state waters that either entirely or partially are supported by our state fish hatcheries. In a state where we spend a lot of time talking about hunting, let's also remember that New Mexicans really love to fish, and we have some big needs when it comes to fisheries management and the future of fishing in our state. We need to invest big in habitat. We need to be thinking hard about the impacts of drought and water scarcity on our fisheries, and we also need to modernize our fish hatcheries. Trout Unlimited's mission is focused on the conservation and restoration of wild and native trout in trout streams. But we also, of course, recognize that our hatcheries are critical to keeping New Mexicans on the water, both catching and keeping fish. In addition to supporting recreational angling, it's also important to note that our hatcheries support native Rio Grande cutthroat and Gila trout for both conservation and recreation purposes. So we support and appreciate the $14 million investment proposed in the current ICIP request. Our ask of the commission and department is also to think big when it comes to special multi-year appropriations from the legislature for infrastructure needs. Securing other state funds at a time when the state continues to see healthy non-recurring revenues will allow the department to direct more of its resources from the Game Protection Fund to other critical needs like improving habitat for big game species and trout and migratory birds. Last year, a coalition of hunting and fishing organizations collaborated for the first time to support a handful of special appropriation requests that included funding for natural disaster recovery, strategic land acquisitions that we hope will benefit the department, investments in river and wetland restoration, and a special appropriation request for hatcheries. In total, over $80 million was directed towards those purposes outside of any contribution from the Game Protection Fund. We think this demonstrates the level of opportunity that we have in New Mexico today to pursue big ideas and investments that benefit fish and wildlife and the resources that support them. And we encourage the commission to think big when it comes to both how we invest in fish and wildlife, but also the multitude of places where that revenue can come from. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Eric, is that it?
Mr. Commissioner, yeah, it is.
All right. Commissioners, have any comments or updates? Nope.
I do have. Normally, this is the time where we speak what we do, right? Correct? I want to be correct. So normally, as a commissioner, we do different stuff around the state. Obviously, I always meet with the public. I'm always meeting with nonprofit organizations, with conservation organizations every month. As well, several of the commissioners and myself, we went to the Department of Game and Fish staff, we went to the WAFWA, to the Western Association Fish and Wildlife Agencies, and where I learn a lot. I love to go to that event. We learn a lot about what other states are doing. We talk to other commissioners from other states, and a lot of the information that you guys provide, what other states are doing, that's when we take the moment and we actually speak to them and see what is working, how is it working, what are they doing, and why they doing it as a management tool. And we get that feedback from all of that. So the reason why I'm saying this is because this commission is very involved into trying to understand where the needs and what the public is asking for. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Commissioner Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First off, I want to thank our three gentlemen back here in the gray uniforms and also all our staff in the gray uniforms. National Police Week was a couple of months ago, end of May. So they're doing a great job out there. I get a lot of accolades from staff and along from the public of what they're doing with community engagement, enforcement, and keeping not just wildlife safe, but keeping the public safe. We all know in rural New Mexico that sometimes you are the only response out there. But where backup is 3 hours away. So thank you. And I also want to say, yes, echo what Commissioner Fernando Clemente said. We did attend WAFA, and I want to thank our fishery staff for the presentation they gave to the Western United States regarding the double Y male brook trout project that's being implemented in northern New Mexico. Great how that was being used across the United States, or the western part of the United States, and as well to all our staff that we are now going into the holiday for 4th of July. We have a lot of recreation happening in the state of New Mexico. It's always great to meet stakeholders. And of course, I've been involved with the uranium mining debacle in northern Rio Riva County, where we're coordinating with Forest Service, the wildlife agencies, as well as the Soil and Water District to help preserve and protect our wildlife in that district, because it's not only going to affect us in the north, but everybody drinks from the Rio Grande, and all the water that comes into the Rio Grande comes from the north. So hopefully, stay tuned. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Lopez. No?
I don't want to prolong the wait for lunch. So
Okay.
I'm good.
All right. Thank you all for attending today's meeting. Our next meeting will be August 21st at Highlands University in Las Vegas, New Mexico. We stand adjourned.